Apparently I'm live. That's what I'm told. I don't know if I believe it though.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I think I believe it. I think we're really live. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Let's do this.
Woo.
Woohoo! All right. Get this where I can see it. Put this right here. Where that should go. I'm hearing. Maybe people talking in the hallway. I want to close the door. I don't know. Do you guys care?
I don't care.
Open? I don't care either. I mean, we're like live to the internet, so.
Do you want me
like,
to close it?
Nah, leave it. It's okay. Yeah, it got really hot here a couple of times, so maybe it's better if it's just crap. We can hear it, but they definitely can't hear it. Hey everybody, hold on 1 second, and I'm gonna go live. Really go live, not just fake live. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to the Technocrat Live. This is my guest, Mari Munoz. Is that right?
Munoz.
Munoz. Okay, I forgot to ask you. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
No, I usually ask ahead of time. I'm so sorry. We just met today, so thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
Excellent. I see you like cowboy bebop.
Of course, I like most cowboy westerns.
You like most cowboy? Wow. Okay.
Cowboy western, space boys.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Are you like an anime person, or specifically that kind of?
Anime? I mean, I love anime. It's like the main thing I grew up on, but anything that piques my interest,
okay,
I will watch.
Nice. Yeah, I'm let's see. A couple of my recent surprises were One Punch Man and Demon Hunter. That was pretty good. I was shocked by that. Both on Netflix at the moment. So I don't know. I try to get into that. What was the one with the giants? I watched a couple.
Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan. I watched some Attack on Titan, but I just didn't. I'm like, I can't pay for more.
Everything
is
rough after the third season.
Really?
I stopped watching after the third season.
Is it rough to watch, or is it badly written?
I feel like part of it is badly written, although I do have friends that told me that it does get better and things do pick up again.
Okay.
I might get back into it. I'm not sure.
I saw it and I'm like, no. And then someone's like, yes. I'm like, okay. And I saw the first season and I'm like, I have to pay for more? I'm like, I don't want to pay for more. I don't know. I guess that's the thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm sorry about messing up the Enya in your name. I didn't know it was an Enya. In fairness, we don't have that character in our character set all the time. So I posted it wrong everywhere. I'm sorry. Is that?
No, it's fine.
You tell people that.
I'm so used to people saying my last name wrong to the point where I just don't care.
Oh. Well, there's two ways you can go with that, right? You can either get really mad, or you can be like, yeah.
I'm generally a very laid back person, so I don't really care about anything.
Perfect. Nice. And that is why we're here on the Technocrat Live, because we're dealing with the tech ethics of being chill in the face of impending doom.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not this show though. Not this week, because it's actually pretty good. We'll get to that in a minute. Just a quick reminder: we don't do politics on the show, so no names of politicians and no names of political parties. Just that specifically because it triggers people, and that ruins the conversation. But everything's on the table. You could totally talk about laws, but instead of whatever the president's name is, say the White House. Instead of this congressperson, just be like this congressperson, and this bill, and use those generic terminologies. It makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
And that goes to you guys in the comments too. You know who you are. Could you give us a quick bio and tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. I am at the moment working as a librarian, but I'm studying psychology and visual arts, so I'm double majoring. At some point in the future, I plan on becoming an art therapist, but also having like a side gig selling art. I feel like there isn't enough art therapists out there to help people, especially young adults and children, with expressing their emotions through art. And when I say art, I don't mean like drawings and paintings. I mean like just the genre in a whole. Like you can do music, or you can do yoga, or obviously painting, drawing. There's just so many different art forms out there and so many ways to express yourself, and I don't think that's something that people really value when it comes to therapy. So that's what I want to do at some point.
That's awesome. Oh, sorry. Forgot to mute this site. That's not good. So why does art therapy help people? Is it because it helps them express themselves? I've heard that Jungian dream analysis only works on creative people. So is that kind of like, is this like a limited audience, or is this something that can be expanded to everyone?
I feel like to a certain extent it can be expanded to everyone.
Really?
I know people who at first weren't like people who would consider themselves very creative, and their therapist actually got them into art and like art therapy and like trying to express themselves in other forms of like creativity, and it helped them a lot. I was one of those people where like at first I didn't really consider myself that much of an artist, and when I got into therapy, my art therapist was like, well, you like to draw a little bit, so maybe expand yourself into that. And now I'm winning art contests all the time.
You are?
Oh yeah.
Awesome. What are some of the art contests you've won?
Most of them are very mental health based. This past one that I won first place for freehand art was about hope and recovery. So I drew 2 trees. It was the same tree, but one of the trees had this big ocean around it, and it looked very like gloomy and sad, and that was for hope. And then the recovery was the tree, and it was a lot bigger, and there was like no water anywhere, and it was like growing flowers and grass and stuff, and it was very alive. So
awesome.
That's the kind of stuff that I do. Yeah, so I feel like my inspiration for getting into this has really been my therapist, so. Mm-hmm.
So what's going on, you know, like, I hate to like precog here, but like, what's going on there? Is it like that people are like, is it that people are having trouble finding the archetypes to express how they feel, and that's why the art becomes a good avenue? Or is it that, they can't face the social consequences of coming clean and saying what they're going through?
I think it's a mixture of both. Knowing how therapy is, because I'm taking psychology, the main form of it has been a lot of like mindfulness and just like the basic, you have to do this in order to face this and this and this, but sometimes people can't vocalize it. Mm-hmm. So it's sometimes easier for people to write it down or express it through art or like music or yoga even, or dance or anything.
So you think that this expands beyond like I don't know. I actually don't know what you mean when you're talking about art. You're talking specifically about painting, drawing.
Oh, it's like
play, like
it's wide. I mean, you can pick anything.
Right. But how about like things that are more like a mixture of like art and athletics, like dancing, or you know, art and mathematics, which is music, or yeah. So any particular art is acceptable. Mm-hmm. How do you find the right art to get someone to express themselves? Is it just what they're good at, or
I guess it just depends on the person, what they feel like they're able to do, or what they feel like they could have a drive and a passion for.
Okay.
It's so hard to talk about because it's like I'm still kind of in the mix of figuring myself out as well.
Right.
But.
No, that's fine. I get that. But I'm just this is like new to me, so I wanted to find out a little more about it.
So especially in children, it's harder for them to express themselves verbally sometimes.
In psychology, that's a huge one, right? You know, analyzing children's drawings, and you know, they usually have a unique set of responses to Rorschach's and things like that. So
yeah, so sometimes when a child is stimulated in that way, where they're like able to do something that they like and they're showing emotions and expressions through something that they enjoy, it becomes easier for them to really talk about that sort of stuff. Like I've noticed myself going from like being very, very reserved to being very open about things that I was having trouble talking about in the past. And that was all because I dove into my artwork and I started expressing my emotions and everything into my art, and then putting basically everything I was going through in my head in the art, and being able to explain it through the art. So I feel like I want to help more people like figure that out for
So it
themselves.
was a catharsis for you, and you want to help people find that path too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So not only is that wise, but it's empathetic too.
Yeah. I'm
really sweet. It's awesome.
I like helping people.
Yeah, it's funny because like I think a lot of people like people get worried when you say that they have empathy because of course there's people out there without any empathy, and you know people don't always want to self-identify like, hey, I'm nice, because you kind of put a target on your back a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you see yourself as a tough person, like prepared to deal with someone who is hostile and aggressive? Because I guess if you know, anytime you expose yourself to the public, that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I definitely would say that in the past I had trouble.
Oh, you had trouble, huh?
Oh man, I feel like even if someone like changed their tone of voice even a little bit, I would start crying. But like now I feel like I'm definitely able to like analyze what's going on and like kind of realize like, oh, this person's going through their own issues and they probably need help as well. And like,
right. Is it because you're empathizing with their state of mind and you're feeling their pain, or is it because or is it because, well, that's kind of weird. What's going on there? Or is it more because you're afraid of the consequences of the interaction going wrong, either for them or for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. More the empathetic side of me realizing like I don't really know what's going on in this person's life. I don't know their struggles. It could be so much worse for them than it is for me or for...
You're already dangerous. It's pretty good. You haven't even started your career yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
So I feel like if I didn't pick this career path and if I wasn't already somewhat educated on like how the brain works and like the different things that could be going on different people's minds and like the different aspects and the different worldviews, I would be a little more afraid of outcomes and stuff. But I feel like ever since I have been learning a lot more about it, I've been able to be like more in control of what's going on around me and kind of de-escalate situations. Pretty much, yeah. That's how I felt taking psychology for the first time. I was like, oh my god, I understand so much. Like,
this is pretty much the theme here. So yeah. Yeah, the technocrats rule the world, so it sounds like you're well on your way. So you're in school for that. You're currently working in a library, right? Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before that you had some foreign crop interests, and I'll let you elaborate if you want to. It's kind of an interesting... It might come back up later.
So I'm Colombian. My family owns a coffee farm in Colombia. We don't just grow coffee, we also grow other fruits and vegetables and all kinds of stuff. We have chickens, which they're so cute, and I love all of them.
Have you ever seen the Japanese chickens?
They're so cute.
They're adorable. They're really fluffy.
Love
If you've never
them.
seen one, go look one up after
They
the show.
are the cutest little things.
It's
But
like they have fur.
I know.
It doesn't even look like
I just
feathers.
want to squish one. I don't know.
Yeah, right. They look very squishable. Like I'm very stressed. I want to squeeze you. Excuse me, may I squeeze your chicken? What? Yeah, they have some at the Queen's farm. So.
Yeah, but so I learned everything about growing coffee, drying coffee out, grinding coffee, producing coffee.
Nice.
From a very young age.
And we've got some coffee, and we have some wine. Cheers. And we have some wine for a little while. I'll break it out. You know what? Maybe I'll break it out right before the Dystopia Report because we've got some good news coming. If you didn't see the advertisements,
I feel like that deserves a little celebration.
Yeah, it does. If you haven't heard about this, I hope you did not tune in because you're obsessively reading things right now, because that is possible when you hear this news. Holy cow! Let's get a little more into. Oh, just a quick reminder. Please share this show if you enjoy it. Give it a like. Tell your friends, you know, if it's a platform where you can give it a love, give it a love. But most importantly, second most importantly is subscribe, and most importantly is comment. I love it when you guys comment. I want to interact with you guys. If for some reason you know me and you see comments and I'm not responding, text me or something, man, because I just, that happened when you were in the audience. for Luke's show, and I couldn't believe it happened. I'm still mad about it. So yeah, definitely let me know if I'm not responding to the comments, something's wrong, because I love it. That's what I want. I just want to have a giant conversation, and that's what makes me happy. That's actually where I got started. So I started. I run the Long Island Linux Users Group, and we all were meeting and talking about Linux since at an embarrassingly early date. And I just love having a room full of minds and just creating a brain trust on a topic.
It's fun.
It is fun. So that's like my wheelhouse. That's my thing. So I really love it. And yeah, if you have questions, let us know, because you're gonna have questions, and if you don't, listen again, because you missed something. It's definitely questionable stuff. Let's pour some wine, because we're gonna get right into the Dystopia Report. Yes, we're actually opening on good news. Hopefully I don't pour the wine in an uncivilized way. I think I have to tilt the glass. I'm glugging it. No, don't glug, don't shock it. What's wrong with me? You go.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and you're welcome to have more if you want. I usually follow my guest's lead with drinking, so I actually have not drunk yet in this studio. This is a new studio.
Ah.
So yeah, it's only been about 10 shows here, so nobody wanted to drink yet. So this is the first time. If you would like some, we have a guest in the audience. If you want some, let me know. Either grab a mug, or I have wine glasses in the. Okay, so sorry to be a bad host. If I'm a bad host, remind me, because I get like super distracted, and this is very distracting. Without further ado, the Dystopia Report. All right. Holy cow! The first topic is science, and if you missed this, you're gonna go look it up now. So do me a favor. I have one ask. If I don't satisfy your answers, and if I don't satisfy your curiosity with the story, and you're into it, don't look it up while you're watching the show. Watch the whole show through, and then come back, and then go back to it later and check it out for yourself. Okay, which I always encourage. Of course I have sources. My source is Reuters, but there's like lots of different venues covering this, including seeing the scientific papers themselves. This is from Korea, so science is always cited with a source, of the science, and so it's like Korean researchers. Holy shit! Room temperature superconductor. You have no idea how amazing and how important this is. Let me just give you guys a list of some of the potential things that can come from this. In fact, they're probably all going to come from it. It's just a matter of how long. All right, let me put my glasses back on. I took my glasses off for dramatic effect. All right, so we have some of the possible advancements from a room temperature superconductor. And it's, by the way, it's not just room temperature. We're talking about negative 100 Celsius to 125 Celsius, which, if you don't know, is basically inhospitable to humans in all conditions. So any condition under which we can survive, the superconductor is fully functional, more or less. Check this out. This is I can't. It's like they nailed it. So we're talking about possible maglev trains. So we're talking about trains that, float over the rail. So once you get them moving, the only friction resistance is air, right? So we're talking about maglev trains, floating cars. So we're talking about flying cars, maybe even like Jetson style floating cars that are running, instead of running on like propeller kind of like drone style stuff. We're talking about magnetics.
Yep.
Like basically using magnetic fields to stay above the road. Quantum computers, of course. This is where the research was occurring. There was actually quantum researchers who found this out. Quantum networking, and I'll get into the quantum networking a little more in a bit, but the idea is that we're talking about possible faster than light communication, which is a big first step towards going faster than light ourselves with our meat sacks. I mean, I guess if we upload our brains, then we could do that and just kill the version of us at the other side, but that's not where I was going.
That's not as fun.
That's not as fun. That's not nearly as fun, right? Yes. I'd love it if my copy got to explore the universe. So much more efficient batteries. So we're talking about the possibility of batteries being able to interact in a more stable and less heat wasting fashion with the contents of the battery. So like, let's say a lithium-ion battery, but with less heat, less weight, more efficient, which is very short-sighted for what you can do with this, but I'll get to that in a second. Huge improvements in DC current power lines. So in case you don't know, everything's AC. One of the reasons everything's AC is you can have these little tiny skinny cords because they don't get hot. They don't get hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, those are DC cords. Like I'm misspeaking, but that's only that DC cord only goes to the AC cord and then it runs, and it's AC all the way back to the power plant because there's it reduces the resistance to have AC because the AC is going back and forth.
Yeah.
And with DC, you need to have these monstrous thick power lines. The reason you need to have these monstrous thick power lines is resistance, and a superconductor has effectively no resistance. So you could use tiny angel hair like wires to run 12 volts at, say, a half an amp for miles with DC current with this, because there won't be any resistance. So right there, huge change. Huge change in the way that electronics and computer chips would be designed. Power lines. So one of the things that happens, even with the power lines running AC, over tens and hundreds of miles, there's huge losses on the power lines. A lot of the electricity. So like as you're connecting power plants to make a grid across the country, power is just wasted by how far it has to travel. So that would be reduced down to nothing. Portable MRIs. So right now, one of the things that's happening with MRIs, the way that MRIs work, are MRIs have a monstrous magnet which examines the magnetic fields in your brain or your body, and they have to have massive shielding around it. Either that means lining an entire room with iron or lead, or so that the magnets don't interfere with equipment and electronics in the hospital, or now more modern MRIs encase the MRI itself in a nitrogen-cooled superconductor. So we have superconductors, but they're not room temperature.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that nitrogen cooling is really expensive. There's a huge power cost associated with it. So whatever gains you get from the superconductor are lost from the cost to operate an MRI basically just went. They're not just portable. They're dirt cheap. Every doctor might be able to have an MRI in their office, which is monstrous. I mean, the effects that's going to have on medicine. Also, they're going to need a lot of MRI technicians. Because the consolidating the magnetic scans into coherent images, 3D images of the body, is pretty complex, and the computer programs that do it are pretty complex and they can break. So you need a technician. That they didn't fix, but they fixed the cost of the MRI itself. What was that? What else was there? Oh yeah, fusion reactor containment. So, and if you're like, what do you mean fusion reactor containment? Have you guys ever seen a little movie called Back to the Future, Part 2? Yeah. How about that Mr. Fusion in the DeLorean? Yeah. Yeah. Are you starting to get it? The floating car part and the Mr. Fusion.
That was literally the first thing that came to my mind when I read about it. I was like, oh my God, it's happening.
It's really happening. Wow. I mean, like, if you're a government obsessed with controlling your people, and like people just got the ability to create and store infinite power and use it, directly translate that to transportation that they control, that there's no parts that you can shoot out, tires, holy cow. Like, there is some control freak in charge of in Homeland Security or the Department of Defense right now is having an absolute conniption fit about this discovery in Korea. There's more. Of course, and the coolest one about this is kind of a perpetual motion battery. So we kind of do this sometimes in electronics, but the problem is it doesn't last forever. You can store energy in a capacitor, but there is some loss. But now you could theoretically simply just create massive coils of superconductive wires, and the current will only leave the wire if you drain it. So you can literally use just a coil of wire as a battery. Yep. Which is bonkers.
It's so crazy to think about.
This is gonna change everything.
It literally
about
is.
to get a lot cheaper, a lot more powerful. and a lot more accessible. But wait, there's more. So so that's just the things that this will do if this turns out to be true. Now, I've had a rant on here about science before. I don't know. I think it was Laura May's show. If you want to go check it out, about what science is and the scientific process, and how we need to give time for. This is just one of the many gifts of this particular discovery, and we need to give time to go back and forth. Actually, the subject that I used was COVID, but it could be any subject. Typically, the disease peer review period is 8 years. That's how long it takes for scientists to be sure that they feel confident that a disease is that a pill or a cure or a vaccine or whatever it is for a disease is safe. But this is not that, and the reason why is because these materials that you can make the superconductor out of are not exotic at all.
Nope.
In fact, there's no toxic byproducts. This is like something you can make out of ordinary stuff, regular elements that are readily available in wide supply. So the 4 ingredients, check this out, I'm going to give you the recipe for this. I'm not even kidding. That's how simple this is. I'm going to give you the recipe for this. So we're talking about the four ingredients are phosphorus, lead oxide, lead sulfate, and copper. I don't know in portions, but it's in the paper, right? You put that in a quartz tube, and you cook it at 1,000 degrees Celsius for 4 days, and then you have the superconductor.
It's so crazy.
What?
It's so crazy.
It's crazy that that's it. Like, people can't believe how simple it was and that no one found it yet. But so, all right. So let's get into the weird stuff. Like, flying cars. So first of all, if this is real, if this is really, you are in a unique position because there's really been only 2 things that show up in human history on the graph of human population. 2 technologies. The invention of concrete, Roman concrete specifically. Population growth spiked with Roman concrete because you could now build aqueducts and plumbing and infrastructure and permanent roads. It made a huge difference for human lifespans. The other one was the widespread, the beginning of it wasn't really the discovery, it was a discovery, but the widespread commercialization of oil, right? You know, whether you like it or not, human population went, a lot of people are mad at fossil fuels, but fossil fuels were a huge, because think about what we were doing before that. We were stripping the forest clean of wood.
Yep.
And we were killing whales and using the oil to power our labs.
Yep.
That's what we stopped doing when we started using oil. So this is going to be the 3rd population boom.
Oh, 100%.
That's how big this is. Like, everybody's going to get really roundy and make some babies, like Wall-E style. That's what's about to happen. All right. Anyway, so the thing in question is called LK99, and they just applied for patents for it. So there was a whole process that was involved. There was a fake story, turned out to be fake a few years ago, and this is one of the reasons that this didn't hit harder or sooner. Before LK99, there was in 2020, during COVID, there was a room temperature superconductor story, which turned out to not be true. But the problem is that process was much more complex. I mean, you can literally confirm this in a month. In fact, I'll go ahead and say that actually it already has been confirmed by at least 2 institutions are saying, yes, this looks to be real, which is bonkers. It's funny because there's videos out there and people are talking about it, but they're not saying it's real. But we already have Lawrence Berkeley and also Shenyang University in China confirmed it and put a video up.
Yep.
Of them pushing around a puck of the superconductor on top of a magnet it's obviously at room temperature. He's touching it with his finger.
I saw the video. It's so cool.
It's so freaking cool.
It's so cool.
Normally, there's a trick with this. If you put it over a rare earth magnet, a really strong magnet, a superconductive material, it'll float. And if it's in a line or a circle, you can get it to spin around pretty much indefinitely in a circle, for example. You can just push it. But it's been cooled in liquid nitrogen because it's like literally off-gassing and reacting with the atmosphere and supercooling the atmosphere and turning it into vapor.
Yeah.
It's vaporizing the atmosphere as it's touching it because as it's spinning around this thing. This is not like this. You just touch it. It's just a normal material, and it's made of normal things. It's made of lead. I mean, I wouldn't lick it because it's lead.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, it's made of phosphorus and lead and copper. What? Holy cow! So so the website's obliterated. If you try to go to the website, it's just completely down because they just they don't know what to do. So there was a patent in 2023 filed in 2023 in March, and then a month or two ago the announcer came. The paper was published. I think the patent was filed and the paper was published at the same time, and there's actually two papers corroborating each other. And we've had these two institutions confirm that this is true. The normal temperature range, operating temperature range, without any real loss, is 100 degrees, negative 100 degrees Celsius to 125 Celsius. So it's beyond boiling water on the high side. If you're in the United States, you don't know the Celsius that well. And we're talking about extreme like Antarctica temperatures on the other side. So we could just if you could make, say, wires out of this, you could just put them in a car and drive it under normal conditions. Oh no! I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Did I get your...
but there's a extension cord right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. I just spilled the wine. Oh no!
We got too excited about the quantum.
I got too excited. I started talking to my hands. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Oh, I'm so glad it didn't get you or your
It just got my arm.
device. I can't believe I did it. We barely even got to drink it. All right, so I'm going to talk while I clean. So check this out. I'm so sorry. You know what? It must be good luck. I always have good luck when I spill. Like that's like my blessing. So this was yours, the one that's empty. This was mine.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not. I think this is mine. I spilled mine. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Right.
All right.
I can't even keep track. I'm like old.
This is what happens when big things happen in science.
And then I covered on the. I mean, literally, I'm never going to cover a bigger story.
It's such a huge
I can't even believe.
I can't even fathom the things that could happen. No, I think I'm good.
Cool.
The things that could come from this.
I was like, oh God, I ruined her outfit. Here, wait. Let's do another cheers quick before it's too late. grab some wine.
Oh. It's like the possibilities are endless with this thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So let's talk a little bit about what's actually happening underneath the surface here. So the resistance of this particular superconductor, as it's measured, is 10 to the negative 10th ohm centimeters. So in case you don't know what resistance is the amount of electricity, just for the sake of simplicity, let's say the amount of electricity that turns into heat as it goes through a wire or through a conductive surface. How much waste is there? So this superconductor is 10 to the negative 10th ohm centimeters at room temperature, and in that range, in that whole range I told you about. To put this in perspective, copper is 1.7 ohm centimeters. Mm-hmm. Copper is the best room temperature conductor we have right now. 1.7, not to any 1.7 ohm centimeters, not to any exponent whatsoever. This is 10 to the negative 10th. This is 10 orders of magnitude less resistance than copper, right? If that doesn't break your brain, there is resistance. It will eventually, the electricity traveling through it will eventually be completely funneled off. But it's so low. So what's happening is it actually forms a crystalline structure inside of the wire, and that crystalline structure is this is insane. I can't believe I'm repeating this, but it's the best explanation I could find. It's creating what looks like quantum gates.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
I'm not crazy. Okay.
No, you're not.
It's like creating quantum gates, and what's happening is the electrons are actually traveling from quantum gate to quantum gate inside the material. This is just a chunk of rock of normal materials, but this particular crystal, so all the people were like, crystals! You were right. We just had the wrong crystal.
Yeah.
Yeah. The electrons are traveling through that at, I'm kind of curious if it's actually, if we're going to get strange effects on light speed with this. I'm wondering.
That's what I'm wondering.
Right? I mean, if it's traveling from quantum gate to quantum gate without any resistance lost to heat, because it's kind of like, almost like jumping, like hopping, then it could theoretically mess with the speed of light, or at least the effective speed of light through this particular conductor. So that's crazy too. There might actually be space travel applications in this.
Firefly.
Yeah. We were talking about Firefly.
Bringing it back to Firefly.
Yeah, bring it back to Firefly, right? Awesome. I mean, you know, a spooked horse is trouble, a dead horse is cover. See? I learned that from Firefly. This is what you can do with science fiction.
Yeah.
I think that's. Okay. So here's another one. So here's a future possible use of this, and just to try to put this in perspective. So one of the things that you can do with this is something called a Carnot engine. So there's a theoretical engine that tells you as you're translating, like say chemical energy or any kind of caloric store of energy, whatever it is, into motion, how efficient can it possibly be? And of course, what the Carnot engine is, as you get further away from the Carnot engine, usually what happens is the energy is wasted as heat. So interesting things happen, like really, really strange things happen if you get that away from the glass. Why? I don't know. I must be paranoid. It's possible we may get into a situation where you can do something like an exercise bike, use the resistance in the form of a superconductive motor to you know, you need the resistance to exercise, right? Otherwise it's too easy to pedal. You know, generate electricity via that route and run an air conditioner that's cooling you off at the same time.
Yep.
It could be that, like we're talking about efficiency scales where something like that is possible, where calories are 1-to-1, right? If you look at the most efficient way to generate electricity, you know, like, you know, scaling up to a power plant and using something like, say, oil, and the caloric content of the oil, it's pretty comparable to, like, say, the amount of electricity you could generate with an exercise bike. You could theoretically be able to run something as complex as an air conditioner with human activity. That's how cheap this makes electricity. So electricity should get a lot cheaper too from this, because it's going to be a lot less waste. Wow, holy cow.
It's going to be so good for the environment. It's like ridiculous.
It's going to be ridiculously good for the environment. I mean, the only thing that's bad that I could see coming from this, but this is not like a new problem for humanity, is the leaching of lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
We got to be careful with when we reclaim. But I mean, this is not new. I mean, aluminum's not great for the environment.
It's been going on for millennia.
I mean, and lead is pretty prominent in soils and rocks and stuff. So it's not like it's gonna. The nature's, there are natural methods of sorting that. Right. You know, it will be pulled. Like if you were to spill lead contaminated water on the ground, and then there's an aquifer 300 feet down. Don't do this, obviously. But there will be some. The lead will be sorted out by the time it gets to the aquifer. It's not going to be it's not like Prozac that stays in the water forever.
Yeah.
You know. So, all right. So that's it. I wonder if anybody has. Oh, great. We have some questions. So Aaron says, "Hey, from the secret bunker. Oh, there. I am talking about LK99. That is the one. That is the magic announcement. And yes, I'm making a call now, especially now that these other two institutions have chimed in. This is real. We have
100%.
We have just entered into the Jetsons. Holy cow! This is going to be mind-bogglingly good. I know you work with electricity distribution. If you have any opinions on this, let me know. Awesome. So, all right. So that is it for that story. Please, after the show, go look it up. It is going to change your life, and I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this for a few months. But one of the most interesting, if you're one of the many people who are computer technicians or computer technicals who are part of the show or involved with the show, and you're like, how does this affect me? This is going to make quantum computers much cheaper and easier. Quantum computers, one of the big problems is cooling, And of course, when you have superconductors, you don't need to worry about cooling as much. So there may be a whole new Gordon Moore, Intel, Moore's Law style run of quantum chips, which has all kinds of oh yeah, everybody's very skeptical because you know what? I mean, imagine if it wasn't true and everybody like poured, I mean, superconductor stocks went up yesterday in China 22%. Yesterday. So yeah, I mean, you're right to be skeptical because there's a lot of money that could be wasted here. But you know, assuming that this doesn't turn out to be not true, you know me. I mean, I've made quite a few calls over the years and been right. I'm calling this. This is real. I'm convinced already that this is the real deal. I could be wrong. Obviously, I have not baked. My barbecue doesn't go to 1,000 degrees Celsius, so I can't make some of this. But really, if you have lab equipment, you can. Like if you have a real lab, you can make this and
100%.
just test it for yourself. And that's why we already are getting results back that this is real. That's what you would expect with this kind of with a room temperature superconductor that's made from normal materials. Yeah, so amazing, and we're going to be talking about this for months. But yeah, if you're in electronics or you're in computers or anything like that, we're looking at another run of chip shrinkages. And the interesting part about this is, I don't know if you know this, I don't know how into computers you are, but one of the things about quantum computers is, you ever see the movie Sneakers?
No.
Okay, so the movie I'm going to give a little bit of a spoiler. The movie Sneakers revolves around, we have a 1 month spoiler rule on here, by the way.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like from the 90s, so yeah, we're good. So in the movie Sneakers, there's a box in question. I won't say what's going on with it, but this box is able to decrypt anything. It's a black box, and if you plug it in, and one of the things that they say in the movie is no more secrets. So that idea, I think, is actually one of the things that they expressed in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. One
of the reasons that they're moving data around via droids is because there is no encryption.
No.
If you broadcast something, anyone can read it. You know, which is kind of how things were here originally. But in a quantum computer world where we're having a Moore's Law style escalation of chip speeds with quantum computers, there might be no more encryption.
No more secrets.
No more secrets. So, like, you can run anything you want. You can probably, there's one problem is no more secrets. The other problem is it's going to be very difficult to identify people, right? Identities, because we use cryptographic signs. Say, oh, that person is, there's 1 billion to 1 odds that someone could crack this, so that person is who I think they are. We won't be able to do that anymore.
Nope.
So that could get really ugly. There's going to be a lot of fakes out there. Yeah, but I appreciate your skepticism, and it's well informed. I think that that we are going to get blown away by this. I think this is the real deal. I'm calling it, and I look forward to being able to say, I told you so on the I told you so report in the future. All right, on to tech government. Sorry. Why the lighting's so bad in here? Maybe I just we look great, but I can't see it. It's like a seance. I gotta figure out I really gotta upgrade my camera technology. It's time. I gotta say thanks to Ariel for this one. This was actually your story. So there's a hacker in China who is working largely. Most publications are just saying that this hacker is just essentially a vassal for China's government, and he's called Volt Typhoon. And apparently, he in 2022 hacked water, power, and communications in the general vicinity of U.S. bases. And it looks like this is some kind of preemptive wartime strike, because the idea being that they can shut off the power, water, and communications to military bases in the surrounding areas.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, from China. Yeah, exactly. So this was discovered, it was discovered in May, so it's been in place for 8-9 months. So of course the problem with these sometimes is you have data infiltration and you have to go back to backups before the data was hacked. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, because these are services, that's not going to be the case as much, but yeah, this is not great. the White House and Homeland Security have verified this. It is a Microsoft-based exploit. We have not heard anything else. So I will say one thing about this in general is that whenever the government comes out and says there's aliens, the problem is the next week they can come out and say they weren't real. You just made it up. And when they're the only source, you really have no recourse. Right?
Yeah.
You know, the journalists could do some research, but it's very hard for them to contradict the government, whether they're saying this interesting thing is happening. No, it didn't. They can literally vacillate like that, and you're just stuck with whatever the official story is. So a good example of this was I don't know if you heard about this. There was the Air Force reported, somebody in the Air Force reported they did a simulation with drones, and they used AI to run the drone. Like they didn't control the drone directly. They just hooked it up with AI and said, okay, you do your thing. And it wasn't real. It was a simulation. It wasn't like in meat space, but it basically decided the quickest way to accomplish its goal was to kill the drone operator. So, right.
Oh.
Yeah, it went full Skynet and got homicidal immediately.
Lovely.
Yeah, but the thing is the Air Force released this story, like someone from the Air Force, and then a week later they denied everything. So was it true or not? 10-1 it was true, but now we can't, like, all right.
Now we can't verify it.
Right, you can't verify it. So that's the warning I'm giving about this Chinese base hack. It looks like good journalism, but it could be, there are some exterior verifications, but yeah, it looks like, I haven't heard which Microsoft, if you know which, the name of the Microsoft exploit, if it's just something I missed and it isn't something that's secret, let me know. Of course, governments have piles of zero-day exploits that they sit on to hack each other, so this is not totally surprising that China would have one that was convenient and affected all those institutions. All right, so FCC has fined a robocaller company, so robocaller as in, spam likely calls, I'm talking about $300 million. So actually real money, a real fine, and a real action from the FCC. A lot of people are really pissed off at robocaller calls, and they're like, what is happening? Why is this being allowed? It's not like the call centers can easily, like even if it's all network equipment and you're carrying it from place to place, at some point you got to get an IP address. It shouldn't be that hard to find you. What's happening? Why isn't it? The real question is, why are they enforcing this now? And I don't really know, but I have a fun answer, which is I think it's Jolly Roger Telephone. So if you haven't heard, I covered Jolly Roger Telephone on the on here. Do you know what that is? Yeah. So it's for the people who don't, Jolly Roger Telephone is some people who used AI to and some voice clips to trick telemarketers into thinking they're talking to a human when they're actually talking to AI. It's brilliant. It's basically spamming them back.
It's so funny.
And some of the time they can actually get they can keep them on the line for as many as 15 minutes by pretending to be incompetent and not actually giving them any real information. Absolutely brilliant, and would probably take the wind completely out of all those robocalls if, say, 5% of the people they called use those. So government doesn't like competition. So I think that may be what's going on here. I don't have another explanation. Anyway, so that's TechCrunch.com if you want to see more. That is not their theory. That is my theory. But the Times just covered the Jolly Roger thing. So there, sources. I've had people give me a hard time about sources before. So in case you couldn't tell. So kind of an interesting thing. I'm putting this under tech government. This is really like as far afield as I've ever gone on the show, but it's really relevant because it's pretty strange. So we've been having a series of rate hikes in the United States. We were at 22-year highs a month ago or a month and a week ago. We just had another surprise rate hike last week, and hot on the tails of that rate hike, Fitch downgraded the U.S. debt from AAA to A++. This is not something that happens to superpowers. So very strange. This is BBC.com if you want to read more about it. But really not good, because we're heavily in debt, and when you downgrade those ratings, that makes the interest rates that the U.S. pays on its debts go higher.
Yep.
So this affects everything. This affects a company trying to build a new superconductor fab, right? That's trying to right? They may go to borrow money, and it's going to be higher because the banks have to borrow higher because the government can't borrow as low as it used to, and it's the government's connected with the Fed has to think about the government when they're raising their rates. So I'm not really sure why this would. I mean, now we know why the rate hike happened, but the real question is, if the rate hike didn't do it, does this mean another hike is coming? Probably it does. So
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it might be a good time to pay down those credit cards. Yeah, so I don't. We're getting into the early '80s here. We're starting to get into Volcker territory. I'm not really sure what's going to happen next. Anyway, so that's it for tech government. On to tech. So if you're one of those people, took your entire IT infrastructure and moved it onto the cloud, specifically into Amazon, I told you so. I really did. I told you so. Amazon is going to start charging ½ cent per hour for static IP addresses. So if you don't know what static IP addresses are, the entire internet works on IP addresses. IP addresses are basically they're sent through network equipment. IP addresses are the numbers or the addresses of the endpoints on the internet, and normally groups of IP addresses are given to different organizations, and then when you say, hey, I want to talk to this IP address, the Internet Numbers Authority will say, hey, this is over here with this physical connection, and then they'll send you over there, and then their routers will lead you, one router after another will lead you to where the IP address is. So because they're broken up into blocks, even though we're not technically out of IP addresses, we're out of blocks, and so Amazon has been scrounging for IP addresses, and apparently they've hit their limit. So none of this is their fault. But if you had an institution and you had a block of IP addresses, you may want to think about moving it back to where you can control your IP addresses, because they're not going to give you one for free anymore. Yeah.
Gotta pay.
You gotta pay. And if you don't know which services, most services you don't need IP addresses, but there's a couple that you absolutely do, and those are specifically email and DNS, which is the thing that makes all those IP addresses. Go into easy to remember names like www.thetechnocratlive.com. So yeah, that's what DNS does, and without a static IP address, you can't really send people to the right place. So not great, not happy about that. And now that Amazon's doing that, it may set a precedent for other institutions to charge similar prices for static IP addresses. Which, by the way, maybe could be a good thing if the prices start drifting down, because everyone who doesn't need a static IP address, as many services don't, gives them up. But yeah, but those services, the DNS, I run my own email and DNS servers, so I know exactly. Not looking forward to the various cost hikes that are probably going to come from this. Anyway, but I did tell you so about the cloud. Maybe you'll survive this one. Hopefully you'll survive the next one too, whatever the next hike ends up being. Finally, a modern reactor. So if you've heard me rant about nuclear reactors, I think we need more of them. And the reason that we're not having more nuclear reactors, why we're not having it? Because we're using really old ones like Fukushima, which tend to blow up when things go wrong. So we don't need to be using old reactors.
No.
We have 450 reactors in the world, and roughly, and I'd say maybe 10% of them are modern reactors. Well, the United States got its first modern reactor in a long ass time. Georgia now has a Type 3 Plus reactor, so kudos to you. It's a Burke County, and it's a Westinghouse AP1000. It's a Generation 3 Plus. The thing about Generation 3 Pluses and newer is they have completely passive cooling systems. In other words, if their power goes out, if the power grid goes down, if the grid goes down, they don't have to switch to a diesel generator to keep the pumps and the valves running to keep the nuke power plant, so it can't melt down from that. That's exactly what happened in Fukushima. It stopped pumping the water because all the diesel engines got flooded, and then they just started cracking water and creating mini atomic explosions, spreading primary nuclear material all over the area, irradiating it for 10,000 years. That's what we don't want to happen.
No.
And that's why people don't like nuke plants. And it's completely avoidable because a modern nuke plant isn't going to do that. If you shut the power off on this plant, you know what's going to happen? Nothing. Because heat is going to push up the water into a chamber where it evaporates, and it comes back down on the chamber, and it condenses and goes back in here, and it cools itself that way without using any fans or pumps or valves or anything. You don't have to touch it. It just goes. So why are we doing that everywhere? Yeah.
It would be so much better.
Right? Because the people are NIMBYing. They're NIMBYing. You know, it's like, not my backyard, no. So, yes. I'm going to go back to Ariela's comment. I am very skeptical. Yes, I am very skeptical of old-style nuke plants. People stop NIMBYing the replacement of old nuke plants. We can't afford to give up our reactors. We literally can't generate enough power without them. We need to replace the old ones. The old GE Type 1 reactors with 3+ reactors like this, like the AP1000. I hope I don't eat my words and blow up, and it blows up, but I won't, and it won't, because that's not how it works. All right. It will be an I told you so I never get to enjoy, because nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. All right, so, oh, wait, and speaking of electrical grids, Elon Musk, the guy who made all those Teslas and got us on really got us on the electric car kick, is out there saying, yeah, the grid's kind of fucked with car growth and mandates. Actually, his actual quote is, "You really need to bring the timescale of projects in sooner and have a high sense of urgency." So that's what he's talking about when it comes to bolstering the grid. And the reason why is because we're looking at 40% growth in electric cars in 2 years. Right? And there's a reasonable chance that this is going to cause the grid to go down someplace, maybe multiple places. And if you are one of the institutions, when I mean institutions, I mean political institutions like New York State, that is mandating the use of electric cars, it's time to back off, okay? You are going to create a calamity. You need to stop pretending that you are technocrats. You are politicians and bureaucrats. You don't know what you're talking about. The guy who has the leading supercharging network, the supercharger network is now the charging network since he open sourced the plugs, and everyone's using them. So this is the guy who would know. If there's anyone in the world that would know, it's freaking Musk. He's saying, you guys have got to cool it with the mandates. California and New York, you need to push them out 10 years. Give the infrastructure a chance. Electric cars are already hot without you fumbling around and screwing things up and making them worse. Let the market react to the rolling blackouts and take the pressure off, because it's not going to do that if people are going to have a cop tell them at gunpoint they're not allowed to run that kind of combustion engine car anymore, right? Which is what will happen. You know that's where this is all going. So hold on a second, I got a text, but anyway, so Musk said it, and maybe you believe it now. And I just wanted to see. Okay, this is not someone telling me that something's on fire. That's good. Nothing's on fire.
Sweet.
So I like to check though, because you never, like, sometimes you can't always smell it. You don't know until you're already dead.
Yeah.
Does that happen? I guess if we're asleep, right? Maybe it's the audience member. Well, I hope you guys are safe. Anyway, Raspberry Pis, their availability looks like they're finally recovering. So yay on that. Now it isn't. They're still not available, but the problem is they knew they weren't able to scale up the production of Raspberry Pis. If you don't know what Raspberry Pis are, they're these little open source computers, not a lot bigger than this.
Literally, it's so tiny.
Yeah. Have you done any work with Raspberry Pis?
I have not, but I've seen so many videos.
You're such a science geek. It's so cool.
What can I say? I'm on YouTube a little bit too much.
Nice. By the way, would you like more wine?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I could use more wine too. Oh no, I have one. All right. Just say wine.
And stuff.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Excellent. So yeah, Raspberry Pis are really useful for low power applications where you need some compute power. I'm a Linux specialist, so for me, they're easy. I love them.
And they're so cute.
I've demoed a couple at some conferences for Lilac and stuff, just to say, hey, you know, you can get involved with this for really cheap. But unfortunately, right now you can't, because while the price is cheap, you can't get them.
Yeah.
They weren't making enough of them. So
sadly.
the current production is 400,000 per month.
Jesus.
This year, they're planning on ramping it up to 1 million per month. So it's a pretty good shot that we're going to have a plethora, a virtual cornucopia of Raspberry Pis at our disposal.
I love that.
In the meantime, if anybody knows, I actually don't know the answer to this. I poked around and tried to look it up, but I don't know what the answer is. Apparently, a lot of people have switched to alternative small compute platforms. But I don't know what the real winner in that space is. Maybe they're all over the place. I mean, of course, you can go on Amazon and look up sales, but that's just Amazon, right? You got Micro Center, you got Newegg, you got, I almost said Fry's, they're gone. But like, you know, whatever electronic source there is. So I'm just wondering if anybody knows if there's a real, like, if there's some new preferred platform. If not, maybe the Pi survived this. Hopefully this doesn't happen again though, because those supply shortages are subpar when you're trying to plan a project that involves a lot of cheap computers. I just got a message from someone. Let's see what it says. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that's not super important for the show. Anyway, so that is it for Dystopia Report.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm pumped. This is a good one. In case you didn't, I'm going to say this again because I want you to know you heard it here first. If you have not heard about LK99, the room temperature superconductor, and how much shit it's going to change, it is going to change. This is a 100-year. This is an instant Nobel Prize, and this is going to be a 100-year difference. It's entirely possible that we're looking at a 5 to 6 year ramp-up time for the DeLorean in Back to the Future 2. That's how important this is.
We all want the DeLorean.
We all want the DeLorean. I mean, it won't be able to time travel, but all the rest of it.
But still, it's still cool.
The Mr. Fusion flying DeLorean is absolutely awesome.
It's insane.
Yeah, so this is, you know, this is a distinct possibility that this is, and actually it's kind of funny that they made it stainless steel, which is not magnetic, and it's going to probably run off of magnetic fields. So
they knew what was coming.
They knew it was coming. They said that they tried to predict in Back to the Future what the future technologies would be, and we're trying to line them up, and like, all right, we're gonna have hovering. You know, they actually had like a think tank and they tried to figure out, because they got some of it right, but everybody was making fun, like, where the hell's my flying cars? And like, we're getting like these big drone things, but that's not the same. That's not a levitating car.
And now we're just a step closer.
We're really close.
We're getting there.
We're getting to flying cars. It's gonna happen in my lifetime. Just in time for me to not care. Like, I don't want to go nowhere. I want to sit in my rocket chair in the front porch. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have those floating chairs like in WALL-E.
Yeah, floating chairs. I'm not sure what that's gonna do to humanity though. They have very short arms and legs in WALL-E.
They were also very.
With the rise of VR as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because of Apple's VR.
That's true.
Moving chair.
Well, yeah. Even more importantly, you know, it's with the battery technology. Yeah, VR is going to be a lot more. The big problem with VR is either the weight or the expense of the headsets. But with all the superconductor stuff, it's going to be dirt cheap to do a headset that's pretty immersive. So, I mean, it may not be perfect, but it's going to be close. Yeah. I mean, you might even be able to do it like a suit, like a reactive suit, because you can do such low power, like this.
Some will give you the ability to sing. Some will give you the ability to like make art. Some will give you the ability to be really good at sports. So she prays one night and she's like, I want to be good at something in my life, blah, 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 blah. She wakes up the next morning with 3 eggs in her bed. One of them is a blue character who can draw. There's another one who's a pink character and she's like good at sports. And the third one is a green character who's good at cooking and like baking.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura-esque, where she like can transform when she like fuses with the.
We're alive.
You're frozen.
Oh,
Frozen.
sweet. But yeah, she fuses with the characters, and she has to go help kids whose heart eggs have turned dark, and help them find themselves again.
Okay.
And she falls in love with I think he's a college student or a high school student who also happens to be in love with his own sister.
Oh God.
It's totally PG, nothing weird happens in it, but it's just weird that he's like in love with his sister. But yeah, that's the whole premise of the anime.
Check this out. Wow, that is crazy.
What?
This has never happened before. Wow, you must be like.
I broke the mainframe.
You spooked the spooky people. NMI received for unknown reason on CPU 1. You have strange power saving mode enabled, dazed and confused but trying to continue. What the...
This is why I don't talk about Shugo Chara.
You broke the matrix.
That's it.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Man.
The art is so cute, but it's like I tried watching it a few years ago and I was like, man, this show is stupid.
You might be coming back. You might be coming back. Give it a shot again if you wouldn't mind, Luke. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I wonder if
I'm
anyone-
referring you into my tech support, but I can't easily check it. All right, we're live. All right.
Oh no, is it talking about it?
Cool. All right, we came back to life, so hopefully Odyssey isn't dead.
Oh god.
You have 8,000 people now.
No, stop. That'd be really funny though if I'm just sitting here on YouTube Live talking about Shugo Chara, one of the most like unknown animes that's also like one of the worst animes to ever be created.
All right. Well, I'm glad it's
Black Clover.
It's wholesome. Like,
yeah,
I was a kid when I was watching it, but it's just like so cringy when I watched it back when I'm an adult now.
All right, check this out. That's awesome. All right, cool. Thanks. We're back to life.
Woo!
Yeah, sorry about that. All right, let me explain what just happened. I don't know if it froze for you guys, but we seem to have had some kind of hiccup where my computer just had a conniption fit, and the streaming software lost connection with the with YouTube and Odyssey, and I'm not really sure why there wasn't any event on it. I mean,
No.
we're just talking about your cringy
Cringy anime.
I won't make you repeat it, but
I'm not going to. You guys lost your chance.
you lost your chance to hear about the cringy crazy anime. So, by the way, since we're right back, please, if you're enjoying this show, like it, love it, share it, comment, subscribe. I know this is not the best time, but I mean, just if you found out about LK 99, or if you found out about anything else for the show and you appreciate us for that, please don't be afraid to be part of. Oh man, is it?
Did it do it again?
I think it might have done it again. Oh no, we're alive. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and if you're having any problems seeing the show, don't be afraid to text me or let me know. I just want to keep track. It's a little hard to engineer and talk at the same time. It was a great story you told. So let us know if you heard the anime story. I'm kind of curious.
Oh God, please don't.
What? It was a cute story. I liked it.
Oh God, it's just
Yeah, I understand.
so poorly done. Like the concept is great, but like
How
watching
old were
it.
you when you saw that? I mean,
I was like
I was giving you an
14, 13 at the
see,
time.
So that's not so bad.
I
Just
still,
young and naive, and then
I had the whole intro memorized as a kid.
Get out of here, really?
Yeah, it was something else.
I'm so sorry. I feel okay. Okay, cool, good. We're functioning there.
The anime is cringe. Yeah, it is cringe. It's very cringy.
It's interesting. This has been my first disaster with like engineering while I'm doing the show. So I've pretty much been able to just ignore this stuff. So also, if you're watching, you got to see it live. So I got out of it. Yes, I didn't have to die. It was always funny to watch. We tease Steve when I had an engineer, and he'd be behind the desk, and he'd be like, doing what I was just doing. You're like, hey, when are you gonna get it back up? But it's not so funny when it's happening to you. Yeah. So okay, that's awesome. What is my first anime was Cowboy Bebop.
I love Cowboy Bebop so much.
I mean, I had seen a couple others, but that was the first one where I was like, what is this? I saw it on Adult Swim, actually. And I was just like...
That's where everyone saw it back in the day.
Yeah, okay.
Are you kidding me?
Is that the intro that most people got?
I'd wake up. I'd wake up to the intro playing, and I'd be like, oh my god, Cowboy Bebop. Oh, so good.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to do it anymore. It might be a copyright strike. So you're really worried about AI. So do you know what the singularity is?
So, I don't care about like having AI write stories and stuff like that.
Okay.
I want to see the very first full like 1 hour, 2 hour movie created by AI. That's something I'm like, they should do that because that would be really cool to see. But AI art is where I'm like, because you get people that are like taking AI programs that'll just steal art from artists who post online, and it's very obvious that the program is stealing the art from those artists. But like my buddy Luke over here, he like creates AI art, and it's like just the AI coming up with ideas, and they look really cool. Or there's people where like I did it in the past, not gonna lie, yes I did do this, where I would ask for certain photos, or I would take photos of myself and put them into an AI, and then I would gather ideas from that AI to create my own art, and I'd be like, okay, this is like a template that I'm gonna work off of. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I would categorize it as art, because I mean, there's digital art where like you're working on your iPad or you're doing photography, but AI is like all generated, so I'm like 50-50 on it. Before I used to be like totally against it. I'm like, that's not art. But now I'm like, I mean, it helps in a way, and like it's kind of cool. So like, I don't know if it's still.
So we got two different things here. So one of the things we've got is that when is it art? When does it stop being art? And it's just so AI is just a tool.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like a paintbrush, And if somebody has a really great paintbrush, assuming it's not a magical paintbrush that does everything for you.
Yeah.
Right? That sounds like a Disney movie or something. But like if it's not a magical paintbrush that does everything for you, it just helps you hold your hand straight, then it's just a tool.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
They literally have that in engineering. They have like like guides that you can hook your pencil up into to make a straight line.
I use I have this tool on one of my drawing pads on my iPad where like I will draw like a line and it'll make it completely straight. Mm-hmm. Or like if I'm outlining something, it'll follow my outline, so it doesn't like go out of the outline or anything.
Right. So those are tools. Mm-hmm. So the real question is, when does it flip over from tool to cheating?
I feel like once it starts taking actual material from other artists, and some of these photos that I've seen have the artist's signature on the bottom or like on the top somewhere, and I'm like, that's not right. I feel like that is cheating and kind of stealing in a way.
Right.
So I feel like there's a difference between like actually generating something that's completely organic and something that is stolen partially from another artist with only like one thing changed or two things changed about the image. So I think maybe that's where the difference is, because I mean, I know that there's AI programs that won't do that, and they'll just completely they'll take like bits and pieces of like what they see online, but then generate their own thing, kind of like what Luke has. But then there's also the AI programs that will just straight up like take art from other artists and then like switch it up a little bit, but you'll see like the signature on the bottom, and I'm like, oh no.
There's so many places I could go with this. So do you want to chat about more about? Well, all right, I'll pick here. So let's talk a little more about. There is a standard. I believe the Grammys have come out and said that as long as 1/5 of your music is generated by a human, that it's acceptable. Now, how they define a fifth, I don't know. Like, my guess is 5-person ensemble, 4 people are not people at all, they're AI, and 1 is a person. Let's say a singer with a background band. So, you know, but then again, you could twist that around and say, okay, well, let's say you wrote all the music, right? Like, you wrote in 2 instruments with the music, and then let the AI generated it, let different machine learning algorithms generate it in the background, so that, like, you know, you're telling it what the notes are on the guitar, but it's playing the guitar, right? You're not actually playing it. Now, of course, you know, the analog instruments, the analog string instruments are notoriously hard to emulate, but let's say it successfully does it, nobody minds the sound. They think it's cool. You know, like early synth days.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, okay, well, we know it's not really guitar, but it sounds great, so we don't care. You know, at that point, is that also, if that's the, how do you define the percentage as far as writing is concerned? I mean, how would you define, say, 20% of art? Like, if it's a picture, does it just need to be the character in the foreground? Does it just need to be the layout of the buildings in the background? Does it just need to be the color scheme of, I don't know, the cars in the parking lot? You know, like, how much is 20%? How do you figure out what that is? Is there an objective way to figure that out?
I don't think so. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, maybe there isn't. But like,
so like,
also,
how
like,
do you figure out when it's a tool? Or I think that's one of the problems.
I feel like
when is
maybe
it not a tool?
Maybe when it's not a tool is when you're not using your own material to put into the AI.
Right.
Where you're just asking the AI to like come up with an idea instead of like taking one of your photos or taking one of your art pieces and putting it into it and being like,
so
do
you
this
can call
about
that
it.
a seed. So
Yeah.
let's say, so you have to generate a seed.
Yeah.
Now, what is 20% a fair number, or should it be a different number? What do you
I
think?
think 20%'s a fair number.
You think it's 20%?
I think
a fair number?
yeah.
All right, so you heard it here first, people.
20%'s a fair number.
20% is a fair number. So now remember that. That's gonna be really.
That's
interesting.
gonna come back to bite me.
No, nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we got Zenith TSF. Yes, it froze for me. Sorry about that, Zenith. Glad we're back, and thanks for hanging in there. And thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. And yeah, Ariel is confirming it. We have a couple of questions from Luke. All right.
Oh God, what did you ask?
Is creating said AI image originality or something else? Yeah, I mean,
that's a good question. 'Cause like, if you're putting your own image into it and asking the AI to generate something, I feel like that's something originally created, because it's not like somebody else had that same photo and put in the same idea. You put that photo in and you asked for the AI to do something to it specifically. But if you're taking like an idea from someone else and using it on your own image, then maybe it's not original and
Right.
you're just taking an idea from someone else. But then again, talking about this is a good segue. Artists copy other artists, and it's been happening for like millennia. I mean,
imitation is flattering.
imitation is flattering.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Van Gogh. People copy Van Gogh all the time. People copy Da Vinci all the time. People copy.
Well, it's interesting in science. You know, there's this very famous quote. You know, I only can stand so tall because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, which I think is true for any cultural progression, including the arts. You know, like, you know, there's abstract art has a history and has things that are going to influence you, and maybe that's not going to be the same influence on everybody, but you know, we went through a realism stage. When you're doing realism art, even if it isn't a major influence, you're going to look at what other people did to see, okay, what's possible, how far can I go, how much detail can I get, You know?
Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I haven't done my own imitations of, like, Da Vinci's or Van Gogh's. Like, I had to do that for one of my 2D classes where I drew Van Gogh's famous trees, where it's, like, a bunch of trees, but you only use line work for it. But obviously it's not like if you put mine up next to his, obviously you're going to tell which is his and which is mine.
I actually got a question about originality too. So in originality, of course, you have your intent, and then you have the product, and it's usually not perfect.
No, it's never perfect.
It's not perfect to what your original intent is, and sometimes it's better.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if you're advanced enough, that's a built-in part of your process. But is your intent more originality than the product? Or is the product more original because it has that randomness built into it?
I think it's both. Because the intent is original to what you wanted to happen at first. But then the outcome is also original because you didn't intend for the outcome to be what it is. There are so many paintings that I can tell you about where I started off with a certain idea, and then by the end of it, when I varnished the canvas and I'm like framing it, I'm like, this is not at all what I envisioned to begin with.
Right.
But it's still something that, like, I haven't seen anyone else do. It's something that I haven't personally done myself.
What's your favorite work like that? Where you like, what's one that you did where you like planned A, ended up with B, and you couldn't be happier? I
did this. I think it was like an 8x11 canvas where I wanted to draw this scenery with a tree and like maybe like a pond at the bottom of the canvas and like a nice sunset. And what it ended up being was the sun with an eyeball in the middle of it, and there was like a bunch of colors coming out of it, like it was crying but like oozing like rainbows. And then the tree had an eyeball in it, and then on one of the branches of the tree there was a bunch of trolls, and by the water, like that pond that I was just talking about, there were these two frogs on a cute little date. I seriously did not plan any of that to happen.
So
it just
kind
of
of
happened.
subconscious flow. So in a way, they're almost like hallucinations.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about, if you don't know what I'm getting at, I'm sure you probably do, but if you're in the audience, you don't know what I'm getting at, hallucinations are the official computer science word for when an AI, particularly a linguistic AI, but it could be any AI, like video, audio, whatever, makes up something out of nowhere, and it's essentially a lie, and nobody knows where it came from.
No, it happens.
Like, literally nobody knows.
It happens all the time in art. I mean,
yeah.
And I learned this from one of my art teachers a few semesters ago. Basically, you could plan out a whole piece in art, and you could say, I'm going to do this and this and this, but most artists don't stick to that plan. At some point in that list, they're going to start changing their mind and go, oh, wait, this would look really cool if I put it in. Or like, actually, I don't really like this color, so I'm going to change it up and do a different color. Your art is never going to be from what you first intended it. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing, because art is very subjective and it can go in any direction. And as long as you're passionate about it and you put in a little bit of effort and you put some love into your art, it's going to come out like more perfect than what you imagined.
Right. So what's the process of putting love in?
Just being passionate about it, really getting into it.
Like, is it the flow state? Is it the enthusiasm? Is it protecting the flow state with the enthusiasm?
Oh, it's all of it. It's all of it. It's like, I almost put myself in a trance when I'm doing my art. I get into it. I mean, there are times where like
Ether, huh?
I'm working on it for like hours at a time, and then I have to remind myself, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to go eat or do something. Like, I need to step away for a second, because I get so into it that it's like the only focus on my mind. I'm like, I need to do this. I need to finish it now, or like it's going to leave my brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you have to be in the moment of inspiration. So it's not just the enthusiasm protecting the flow state, but your enthusiasm you need to be able to clear a table and say, get out of my way, I've got to do art.
Basically.
Yeah. Okay.
But another...
Have you ever done that? Have you like got like aggressive with people and said, get out of here, and just take a swinging at them?
I can't tell you how many times I've been like doodling or something, and someone's like, what are you drawing? And I'm like, can you leave me alone for a second? Like, I'm trying to focus.
Nice.
I'm like drawing an eyeball, and they're like, that's a really good eyeball. And I'm like, now I gotta erase it because you made me mess up.
Right. Well, you know, it's funny. All right, so this is like very meta, but like I want to talk about it because it's interesting in a weird way. So I'm a little ADD. Like, I've never was formally diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure that's how I am. And trying to manage just normal conversations and not getting completely flustered and bamboozled and turned around has trained me in a way that it's useful for the show, right? So like, I can get distracted and then come right back around. Like, I won't get hyper focused.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way, that's kind of an art too. So has there ever been like a moment in art when you're in the creative realm when it flipped around the other way, and instead of being in the flow state, you needed to, you know, do a little of this and do a little of that and do a little of this and do a little of that to get to your goal?
Yes, but also at the same time,
Like,
I
I'm
feel
thinking
like
maybe like a more technical thing, you know, like something that isn't as simple as like, okay, everything's laid out in front of me. Like, I have to do this to get to that and this to get to that, and you have to put a bunch of disparate pieces together.
that happens a lot with texture.
Okay.
So, one of the big things that I learned when taking art classes, I mean, even before taking art classes, it was kind of common knowledge for me. Mark making. Mark making is when you don't use regular art tools like paintbrushes or pencils, and you use like a fork or like a spatula or Q-tips to make art. And there's moments where I'm like, oh, I need to get this texture, but I don't have this thing that I need for this texture, so I need to step away to go get this thing for this texture. And then halfway through that process, I'm like, oh, but this other thing would be really cool for that. And then that somehow ends up in art block, and then I have to drag myself out of it because I'm like, now I can't do this thing, and I don't know what to do with my art anymore.
So being able to flip in and out of reality has actually created a creative block for you.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's a kind of a different, because like also like that's something that, with music, there's a lot of, I used to play the drums. I still play the drums, but like I played in bands, and like, you know, like not really when you're live so much because you spent so much time trying to prepare, but like when you're doing the creative process, sometimes you have to stop and fix your drums.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can really block you up and mess you up, and then you get back in there and you're like, I lost it.
Yep.
I don't know where it went, and it's gone.
The one thing that has helped me throughout these years is if I start getting myself into an art block, I'll take out, I have this specific sketchbook that I use only for doodling, and I'll sit down and I'll just aimlessly doodle, even if I'm just like drawing like a little happy face or like a little stick man or something. I try to get myself back in the flow, and then soon, like if I keep it going, I start getting ideas, and I'm like, oh, this would be really cool on paper, or this would be really cool on canvas. So that has helped me a lot. Using music in my artwork has also helped a lot. Like listening to certain songs to create certain images in my head have helped a lot.
Right. Are you using them as placeholders or inspiration, or both?
Inspiration, kind of.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, like if I'm listening to a really sad song, I'll end up making something more gloomy and dark and like lonesome.
It sounds so emotionally healthy. Sometimes I'm happiest when I'm listening to really angry music. I don't know, does that make me not okay?
No.
Looks like I have to speak up for this one.
Equilibrium in the brain.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
Aggravating music for me. I'm a diehard metalhead, but
You and me
Right.
both, brother.
Yeah.
so like that's like my go-to music. But if I'm sad, I'm not gonna just like go throw on Pearl Jam. I'll just like find a death metal band.
Yeah.
Sad boy.
All right, so Luke is saying that, in case you can't hear him, Luke is saying that, you know, heavy metal all the way, and it's his equilibrium. So if he's sad, it actually creates a balance where it's bringing him out of that, bringing him into a new mental state. And by the way, Luke also wrote, he said, but if it's a one-and-one creation, since it can never be fully replicated, isn't it original art?
Yeah, if it cannot be replicated, we're talking about AI, right? Again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it cannot be replicated, I think that's an original.
Well,
I
and
mean,
in a way, what we're really talking about is what is intelligence.
That's true.
That's the core of this conversation. You know, all the AI conversations. I mean, there's lots of technicals about how it works, but a lot of the conversation that people really want to have is what is intelligence itself. That's what I'm finding. So, I mean, we can't stop talking about it. Every show we're talking about it, you know, because it's boggling people's minds.
I still want to touch on that Roomba thing that I told you.
Really? What was it again? Tell me about it.
So basically, I have to go back to the video and like really get full information, but basically the rundown was someone, I guess it was a scientist, that's what I'm guessing, don't quote me on that, asked an AI to describe how they would take over human civilization, or something like that, or like end human civilization, and the AI generated this whole story where it was like it was going to hack into a Roomba. And because it hacked into the Roomba, it's going to hack into the Wi-Fi. And from the Wi-Fi, it's going to hack into a satellite in space that was going to access like all of the mainframes in the world. And it was going to access different nuclear power plants and shut them down. And that was going to suddenly become the downfall of humanity. And then AI will rise or something like that. And I'm sitting there like, this is terrifying. I don't think I want an iRobot situation to happen. Like,
I would love to have been involved in that conversation with it, because what it doesn't realize, if it starts shutting down nuke plants,
it's going to shut down itself.
All right, let's suppose that somehow it has an electrical generation that's sufficient for its brain needs. It has some supercomputer that's running off a dam or something. But, you know, if it shuts down the nuke plants and the nuke plants were to go critical, then and they explode and they release large amounts of powdered original radioactive materials into the air, then it's gonna not just be in the space where people need to grow crops, but it's gonna be in the space where the computers are too.
Yep.
And computers do not operate normally when they're getting hit with radiation any more than people do. I mean, they malfunction as well. Some of the ones turn to zeros and zeros turn to ones, and they don't work right. So it's killing itself too.
Yeah. And that's why, that's like the part where I was like, this is so unrealistic, but at the same time, it is still creepy.
Yeah,
it's still so creepy.
So, so one of the things that might be happening there is it might have had stat. All right, look, I'm giving it credit where maybe credit isn't due, but it might have had stats on as far as like, you know, how infrequently a particular 0-day exploit on the Roomba, that maybe why you picked it, or the satellite, or, you know, having a specific path, because, you know, people publish this stuff. You know, there's blogs. People who are security professionals, they log into a website and every day, and they look, and they, you know, probably multiple websites are probably undercutting. And there's professional services too that have devices that have services to go with, and they're updated just like antivirus is updated every day. And they're like, okay, here's your threats in the network. Here's the things that can be broken into, and there, you know, a human being is sitting there looking at this stuff and then commenting on it and saying, okay, this one's bad, or this is no big deal, or, you know, or like, you know, you're gonna get like a body archetype, like, oh fuck, you know, like that one's not good. And so it may be reading those, you know, it may have read those in the past and said, okay, this is a really bad exploit, and they mentioned over here that no one's, the repair numbers, the patch numbers are really low. So that's the one I'm going to go after, because it'll be easy to find one of those. Yeah. So it's possible that there's, but it seems really convoluted. A little rabbit hole, like, you know, like a rabbit warren, more like. Yeah. Not a hole, but just like wandering around, like trying to figure out, like, why would it give the specific, I mean, I guess they probably asked it what the specifics are. Yeah, a human would just say, I'll just hack some stuff.
I'd have to go back to the video.
Give the end game and give the conclusion. Yeah. Right? Like, okay, I'm going to hack some stuff, and here's how it's going to end. And they'd be like, how are you going to do all that stuff? Well, I'm not telling you. Because, well, think about it, right? Like, if you're coming up with a strategy where you're attacking someone, you don't want to tell them what the strategy is. Like, I'm going to hit you in the face. They're going to go,
okay, well, I'm going to move over.
You know, block you with something, right? You know? No, you're not. You know? Yeah. And so, like, it's weird. This is like one of the flaws where AI isn't there with a generalized intelligence, because a generalized intelligence would know that if you, especially with any experience, like if you tip your hand. So that's kind of one of the Achilles heels. So if you're worried about it taking over, Who knows next year? But if you're worried about it taking over yet, I think we're okay with at least
Yeah,
what
we're
seeing,
fine.
what we're seeing out there in public. And actually, I'll come back to that because I think that, well, I don't know. Do you hear about OpenAI and what they said? So
No, what
they
did
said
they say?
they have 5. They have ChatGPT 5. They're just not releasing it.
Why?
Yeah, they have it. They're just
Why?
not, because they're worried that people are going to freak out, that it's going to be too good, and it's going to be a serious, meaningful, easily demonstratable unemployment number associated with it, because it's that good. Now, who knows if that's true? Maybe this is just them advertising their company, but I suspect it is based on how different ChatGPT 2 is dumb as a doornail.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT 3 is passable. 3.5 is pretty good. 4 is good. And 4.5 is very good.
So how good is 5?
So there's some
They're
veracity to their claim just based on the trajectory. Now, interestingly, 4.5 has gotten worse. Sorry, 4 has gotten worse. Like, there was a paper that just came out and covered it 2 weeks ago, and it's gotten notably worse. Like, its answers are getting worse. But so it's possible that they're sabotaging it intentionally, maybe for political reasons, because there's been a lot of talk in Congress about the different. So when we talk about AI, we're really talking about machine learning, and when we're talking about machine learning, what's really happening is you have kind of they call it genetic algorithms, and it's essentially a Darwinistic. There's two pieces to creating a neural net. When you're talking AI is not generalized. It's doing a specific thing.
Yeah.
Speaking, generating images, generating music, generating voice. You know, having a linguistic conversation, which may not necessarily be speaking. It's just the words. And the thing that's making that happen is an algorithm running through a neural net. So there's two pieces. It's the algorithm and the neural net. So there's actually another piece to AI that we don't usually see, which is the algorithm, the generator of the algorithm. And that's where the machine learning comes in. So it'll sit there and you'll give the primary algorithm like criteria, like you'll give it data. So you'll go out on the internet and you collect data and you bring it back to it. Say, okay, look at this data. Here's this algorithm. Generate algorithms that are really good at doing X, Y, Z, and here's how you're going to score it. So you give it. So you have the sample data set of what you're emulating, a data set that you know is like, these are the right answers to the test, right? Like that is a stop sign, that isn't a stop sign. This is a school bus, that isn't a school bus. This is a good example. We all know what that is with the captures. So it'll generate a bunch of algorithms, and then one of them or two of them will be the best at it. It'll pick those two, mix them up in random associations, and then those algorithms, it'll pick the best two. And it'll do it over and over and over again. And the problem with this process is, well, there's a few problems, a lot of problems. One of the problems is we don't know why it's doing what it's doing. Like if I asked you, that it was interesting that you said that one painting you did. Sorry.
I'm like, I have trauma.
I'll spill on my stuff. That one algorithm was really good. The algorithm that they picked and the neural net that they picked for the algorithm to trace through was the best one at the time, and based on the data that they fed it. And this is kind of the point that I was getting at to when you were saying the 20%. How do we figure out the 20%? So the data that was fed to it, in the case of the linguistic one, so like, ChatGPT, the one that most people are talking about right now, is the linguistic machine learning algorithm or linguistic AI. But it's just good at talking. It's just good at human language. So it's looking at samples of human language of people chatting on the internet. But those samples that it was fed, they're copyrighted.
Yeah.
So they're feeding it someone else's because everything you write is copyrighted.
Yeah. Whether
you realize it or not. And this is one of the things that's annoying about the car companies. I don't know if you know this, like I hate to pick on GM because they're all doing it now, but they were the first, so I'll pick on them. OnStar, sends data about what you're doing when you drive back to GM.
Yeah.
And they use it supposedly to make better cars. But that's your copyrighted data.
Yeah.
And the only reason they can do that is because you either signed or clicked the license someplace.
Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't do that,
they wouldn't.
It's not their data. They're stealing it.
Yep.
So people are like, we don't care. I don't care if somebody has my driving data. But you should, because there's a financial value to that data. It's helping them build better cars, which is a financial value. But a more easily quantifiable value is, like an insurance company will pay you for your data.
Yep.
Like, they'll give you money to see what your driving habits are, because then they can decide whether to raise your rates or lower your rates based on that. Right? They're paying you to take the risk. So that is proof that it has value, that you're copyrighted. But they're, I'm thinking in terms of like a lawyer, like a lawsuit, because you got to prove there's financial harm.
Yeah.
Right? So these AIs are taking pools of data of copyrighted works, because everything you do is copyrighted, and generating a neural net with them.
Yeah.
The neural net that does whatever you want it to do, that imitates the conglomeration of people, is a product of those copyrighted works. And this is actually something that was covered last week. I think I covered it. The AI companies like OpenAI, let's pick on them, Google too was one of them, have been pretty open about using pirated libraries of books as part of their training.
I'll beat them up.
And then they stopped talking about it, and now we don't know what they're doing. But we can be pretty sure they're using those pirated libraries of books to generate their AIs.
I'm watching y'all.
Yeah, so now how do you figure out that 20% when you consider that the algorithm couldn't even exist without enormous troves of human language to train it in the first place?
See, that's even harder to think about now.
Right.
Because, like...
And of course, if we make a law that says you just can't look at it, you can't keep a copy of anybody's copyrighted data, then stuff like search engines stop working. And that's useful, and we all like that. Like, no artist is being like, I hate it when people find my webpage.
No one says that.
Right, but that happens because you have a copy of their webpage, and then when somebody, you put key pieces of information about it in a database, and then when someone goes and does a web search, it looks in the database and goes, oh, I know someone like that, this guy. And boom, this webpage comes up, right? But when it's an AI and now it's competing directly with you, completely different story.
Yeah.
So how do you figure, like, is it 100%? Or is it 2%? I don't even know.
Or is it 50%?
Or is it 50%?
Or 60%?
Which means it's now 10%, which means it's not known just because AI was involved, which means it really needs to be 40%. We don't even have we don't have the words to describe these categories.
It's so rough to even. My brain is boggled right now, even thinking about it.
Right. I mean, this applies to everything.
Yeah.
Like I mean, people joke about it, but it's actually not a joke. Because people joke about the CAPTCHAs and like, oh, where are all the stop signs? You're training a self-driving car.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. They're using that data.
Yep.
What?
It's so weird.
Right.
It's so weird to even think about, like.
And I mean, like, and this is fine. I mean, so the Copyright Office came out and said AIs can't have copyrighted data, and you can understand why, because the tangled mess is already so confusing.
Yeah.
But like, what's the moral answer here? How do we decide if the training data is part of the originality or not to generate the neural net that gives you the answer? Because you can't make it without some kind of training data. Now they could hire people to sit there. They could hire people to be monkeys and write typewriters. But it's going to be different because you're not really having genuine interactions. They're just being paid to pretend to have interactions. So maybe they'll be less realistic, those AIs. Maybe they'll adjust.
They probably will.
You think they will?
I think they will.
Well, if they will, then we're not really holding them back. And yes, they really should be charged for those violating those copyrighted works. Like, okay, you guys were in the research stage, we'll let it fly, but from this day on, You have to pay people
Yeah.
to generate your. So the artists will be sitting in cubicle farms in big tech companies generating art to feed to the algorithms with confirmations of what they think the art means, so that the algorithm can generate its own art.
And then
So-
I'd be out of a side hustle.
Well, unless you work for the tech company.
That's true.
You could be in, I mean, I'm sure the pay wouldn't be awesome, but it wouldn't
No.
be terrible either.
No, because it's
Right.
AI.
Yeah, it's a tech company. They got billions of dollars, so I don't know. I think
That's a tough question
Right?
to think about.
What's right here? What's the right thing to do?
It's like it's so hard to like think of a balance there or like
Hmm.
a number.
Well, I mean, for sure, the robots are never in charge.
Oh, 100%. I
Yeah,
mean, we're
yeah.
in charge of the robots.
We're
Who's going to
like,
update
even
them?
if they're better at something than us, we still have
Yeah.
to make the call.
They need us to update them.
I mean, like, we probably wouldn't even like let them have a say for 100 years if they never made a bad decision the whole time, because it would be nerve-wracking to give them that power. Because what if they, especially if they're, well, that's the singularity when they're smarter than us. When you have a generalized AI, and it's not just good at, I don't know, playing games.
Yeah.
When it's good at everything. It might be the playing games one that actually becomes the most dangerous, because it could theoretically say the game is taking over the world and you can use all these other AIs to. Like, everyone's afraid of the linguistic one because we relate to that, but I don't think it's the linguistic one.
I don't think it's the linguistic one.
I think it's the playing
either.
games one. The linguistic one will be its.
Because the
be how
playing,
it's taught to
yeah,
us.
the one that's playing games is the one solving the puzzles.
Right, it's solving the generic puzzles. I mean, that's how we measure IQ, right? We try
Exactly.
we try to take the learned knowledge out and just give generic puzzles so that okay, can you solve this? I mean, is there really, we're still in meat space, All right, interesting. So I don't know if you have an answer to this. Let us know. I'd really like to know how to break this down.
Yeah.
And
It's a rough subject.
yeah, I mean, it's worth it though, and we have to do it. Like, I mean, maybe not us personally, but somebody has to do this, And of course, what if it's supported, like artists and people who are aware of this process and how it works, were supported, demanding that the data feeds, the sources to them, are actually at least compensated. Maybe not necessarily paid, but at least somehow compensated. Then
I feel like it would be more ethical.
it would be more ethical, right? Yeah, I think so too. Just because like some company, it's not like somebody's kid. Some company owns these.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so ebooks versus dead trees. What do you think is going to happen to libraries?
Okay, so it's such a hard subject for me because I love reading books. I love having a physical book in my hand. I love turning the pages. It's gonna sound weird, but I do love the smell of books, especially older books that have been sitting on a shelf for a while. I don't know why.
Creepy.
After working at a library and volunteering at libraries in my past, it's a weird thing that I picked up. But I also, the environmentalist in me is saying that ebooks are very good because we've been cutting too many trees down.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously like there's new papers that have been coming out where it's like bamboo made or it's like made out of like recycled material.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still paper, and when is that it's gonna eventually like stop. At some point we're gonna end up where like we can't recycle the same thing over and over again. I feel like
It's funny. I haven't heard any. I was just thinking about this. I haven't heard about any language about harvesting end-of-life trees, because trees do die and then they fall over, and then maybe not right away, but 3, 5, 10 years later they're a fire hazard, and eventually Canada burns, and then you can't see anything in New York, and it's because people are worried about killing the trees, but it's like, well, you have to thin the forest a little.
Yeah, because of the dead ones.
Right, the dead ones. So
why can't we take the dead ones?
It's weird that I haven't heard. This probably is something out there. There probably is a way, like a terminology for it. If you know what it is, let me know. I'll look it up after. It just occurred to me now. I'm like, why aren't we
taking the dead trees and turning them into
it
paper?
seems like a thing we could solve with technology, right? Like, we could be like, okay, this tree is dead. Like, maybe not ones that fell already in the ground because they may be bug infested, but like dead standing. why not harvest those?
Yeah.
You know, especially for paper. I mean, I could see maybe not lumber for houses, but why not, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if paper is just a side effect of the lumber industry anyway. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's no, it's almost a zero cost because it's just extra. Kind of like what we don't want to think about with ground beef. Anyway, so what do you see libraries being like in the future? Like, I agree with you about books. I think they're great.
Yeah, I love books. I think libraries and having open sources to different books and materials. I mean, we have a whole archive room that will teach you about the area that I live in, and will give you maps, and will give you like historical artifacts and stuff. I think
So
that's
local.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I mean, obviously my library isn't the only library to do it. Most libraries that you walk into will have an archive room, or will have like a local area room where they have all kinds of like important artifacts that pertain to that local area. But you know, there are still libraries that will have multiple copies of the same book, and I'm just like, you know, Libby is a thing. And if no one knows what Libby is, it's this app, or like you can access it from your computer, where you can borrow books or audiobooks with your library card. And basically it's the same as borrowing a regular book. You have it for a certain amount of time, and then you give it back, and then you can take out another book, and you have a limit on books or audiobooks that you can check out. And I think that's great. I think it's great because, one, we're wasting too much paper. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people throw out pieces of printer paper for no reason. And two, it's just easier to access because there isn't a limit on like, oh, well, someone already has this book checked out, so you can't check it out. You have Libby, so anyone can check out the same book anytime at any like.
Do you think
is
it like a function of schools? Do you think like, you know, like a teacher signs something to read in this book, and then everybody goes out and takes the same book out at roughly the same time because it's an assignment? Is that what's happening? Is that why they have so many copies of the same book, or?
I don't know, to be honest. I know that my library personally, and I'm not dissing my library at all, please don't let me lose my job. We, like, if we have a new book that just recently came out and it's very popular, if we see that there are multiple holds on that book, we'll order the same book and put it on the new shelf next to the same book. So that way there's two copies of the same book, so that way we get the holds.
Right.
Are going through and people are getting the same book at the same time, and there's not as many holds.
Okay.
But I know there's like libraries all over Long Island that will have like 5, 6 of the same book, and I'm like, that's so much. Why do you need that many books of the same book? It doesn't make sense. Like.
So the library is definitely good for the local story. For artifacts, for is a repository. But also community, too, for sure.
Oh, 100%. I think libraries aren't just good for books. It's really good for any kind of resource. I mean, my library, personally, you're allowed to borrow blood pressure kits. We have all kinds of blood pressure kits. We have small, medium, large. We have ones that talk to you. You're able to rent out DVD players.
Wow.
Movies. We have a sewing kit that you can rent out for a certain amount of time. We have baking tins. We have different games. I know there's a library somewhere on the island where you can rent out video games, which is pretty cool. But we also have like activities for children.
It's amazing. It's just the one.
Oh yeah, no. There's like
video games are a huge cultural. I mean,
I know.
Try talking to anyone under 30, and you can't have a conversation about Red Dead Redemption.
I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
yeah.
I feel like
Grand Theft Auto.
I feel like more libraries should be putting in games in their collection. That way, more people can be renting out games. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like, I think so too. And Ariel has actually said there's more trees in America than there were in the 1700s. I'm going to assume what you said is true. I know that we were very clear cut.
Oh yeah.
Near Long Island was completely. There's pictures of Long Island. A friend of mine, Jeff, he might be watching. I don't know. Has sent me pictures of Long Island of Brooklyn and Queens before oil. Remember something about oil? And everyone's like hates oil. I get it. I understand why. But before oil, it was trees, and they just wiped it out. There was no forest left. It was gone. It was just flat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you could see for miles because there was no obstructions. There was no buildings yet, and and it was just people getting wood to burn in their stoves in Manhattan, and Western Brooklyn. You know, so yeah, it's crazy. But like, that doesn't mean we can't improve.
No.
It does seem like we should be doing forest management and paper recycling at the same time, and that's it. That's just an organization problem, and that's something we can do because we have computers.
Libby. Libby. Anytime someone comes into my job and they're like, "Oh, someone has there's so many holds on this book," I'm like, "Have you ever tried Libby? I can help you download it and set it up." Like.
Well, what about when the grid goes down? You know,
that's the other thing.
We're doing all the electric cars, and all of a sudden the grid's down, and like, well, I need to read something, but the internet's down, so I can't read anything right now.
If you download the book, you can read it offline.
Right. Okay.
You can read it offline. That's the great thing about Libby.
Okay, cool. Where can people find Libby?
You can, I'm pretty sure most libraries, if you go on their websites, they'll have Libby on there. I know my library on their website, they have it on there, but if you look up Libby.com, it'll come up.
I got something to tell you. It's going to infuriate you. But
oh, no.
Yeah. So in New York City, it's actually against the law to recycle books with their covers still on.
Excuse me?
You have to rip the covers off if you want to put your books out for recycling. And I'm pretty sure that it was some sort of gift to the bookstores way back when. And it hasn't, as far as I know, it hasn't been revised.
That hurts my soul.
It hurts my soul, too. Because I want to put the books out and have someone take them and use them.
Yeah.
I just do it anyway. I've been taking my chances.
I never. So there's
I've been throwing some books out, and I've been just like, I'm living. I'm like a pirate.
Yeah, no.
I'm like a recycling book pirate.
I could never. No, absolutely not. I do this thing where there's certain places.
Good, keep going.
There's certain places that you can go to, where you can donate your books, and they'll just take your books, and that way you don't have to do that. I didn't know you had to rip their covers off. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
magazines too, I think.
It hurts me even when so a few months back, this person came to the library and they donated a bunch of art books. Oh my God, it hurt my soul.
I just confirmed it on Google. Hardcover books that are no longer usable or repairable and recyclable. Hardcover has been removed. The hardcover should be sold.
It hurts even more knowing that they're hardcover.
They're making you rip the covers off of hardcover books.
I mean,
just as a give me to the very few bookstores left, and they're all. And the funny thing is, half of them are used bookstores. So what? Why New York City? I thought I knew you better than this. What are you doing?
Come on, man. This is wrong. From a librarian, this is wrong. This hurts my heart.
Yeah, it really does. It hurts me too. I was mind boggled when I saw it. I'm like, when can I move back to Long Island? I'm more than a little disappointed in that. So, what happened is this something this is something that libraries can solve? You know, the media has becoming less and less trusted. I think for like I think it was the older half of millennials and Gen X said that they were better off before the internet, which is interesting in and of itself. But like trustworthiness of the press, of the organizations that used to put up periodicals and would have citations for their stories and would print retractions when they were wrong, are less trusted than ever. Like it's 20. I don't remember what the percentage was, but I think it was either in the 20s or the 30s of trustworthiness in the news organizations. What is this doing to us as a society? And is this something that we can solve by encouraging hard copies of things, so that you can't change the story later?
I feel like, and this is why I love libraries so much and why I don't think there should be a book ban. If anyone is watching and knows anything about the book ban, there should not be a book ban. Libraries hold so much knowledge. knowledge from the past, knowledge from modern day, and anything coming up in the future, they will hold that knowledge when it comes up. I think it's so important to have anything from the past in our modern libraries. Even if it's like something that comes out to not be true, at least we have the proof in the books that it happened, you know? And then we probably do have other sources that will say like, hey, this was wrong. So now you can compare and contrast the sources. So it's like, So
part of the problem is, from a technological point of view, from a technical point of view, is you're getting people are publishing stories as quick as they can, and then if they'll either take the webpage completely down, or they'll just change it in line in the webpage, and you'll never know what it used to say.
Yep.
And part of the problem with that is that sometimes the message in the news article will be just completely wrong.
Yep.
And then people will go back and anyone who bothers to go back and check it in 3 days or 5 days or 10 days will know that it was wrong and there was a correction made. But that's the only place the correction's published. Like, it isn't so when you had a physical paper, you could go to, hey, I wonder if this paper is credible. Right to the retractions page, right to the corrections page, and just see, okay, these were the mistakes that we made. But now you have to go to each individual page, and most people don't do that. They just believe whatever they read at the time, and then they're stuck in that. Is that permanent? How can we fix that so that people get that permanence back? Or is this just a blessing in disguise, and now we're just not going to ever trust central source? I mean, is not trusting sources better?
I think that skepticism, but also the one thing that my tech teacher in middle school always said was, don't trust what the internet says unless you have a complete source that does say that it is true, and you have multiple outlets that do say that it is true.
Right.
Because you really can't trust what the internet says at face value.
Do you think most people know that?
I don't think, in this day and age, I don't think so.
Do they?
I don't think so.
Do you guys teach?
I don't think it's taught as much anymore in school.
Do people teach people to be skeptical of the internet, or they just become skeptical because they make a fool of themselves early because it's so bad?
I think they don't do it as much anymore. Because, I mean, we're living in the day and age of TikTok. I used to be on TikTok, and I will say there are some very dumb people on there who will literally believe anything that is on there, and I'm sitting there like, you didn't even like make a simple Google search to make sure that it is true. Like, it's that easy. You don't have, it's not that hard to go on Google and be
so one of the keys that I'll do, one of the things that I'll do is that, I try to I don't necessarily advertise everything I know, but I'll take things I'll try to keep close track of the truths that I think are true. Like, occasionally I'll be shocked and I'll get something wrong, and I'll go, oh, I'm sorry about that. But I'll be like, okay, I think that this is true. I think A is true. I think B is true. I think C is true. And I'll look for sources that verify that those things are true as part of what they're saying now.
Yeah.
And of course the problem is, of course, you could get into a loop where you start reinforcing your own bad ideas, and I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I need to do something. I can't just assume that what people are saying is true. So
yeah, and that's also, I'm pretty sure that's why I think it's Google. They did that whole you can tell when something is a verified source because they have that check mark next to the URL or whatever, and whenever it's a false, it'll do the little X mark on it.
Okay.
But I think it's an extension that you have to download for it or something.
So you're talking about fact checking.
Yeah.
So the question is, who fact checks the fact checkers?
Exactly.
Right.
So it goes back to is it believable or not?
Right. So if the fact checkers used to be everybody, because you could go to that corrections page, and sometimes they put it in early in the paper if it was something that was really bad. But there would always be a page in the middle or the end of the paper where you could find the corrections. But there is no paper now.
So it's just
now we've offshored, we've outsourced our verification to another entity, which is really just people with their own decisions and this is kind of like I know that art is subjective, but I would say that one of the reasons that art is so interesting is because everything's subjective to some degree. Like you can, the goal of science is to get as far away from subjectivity as you can, but even then, there's extensive conversations about what is subjective and what is objective in the peer review process. That sorting process isn't even easy or obvious. It takes, in the case of medicine, it takes years. So, like, I'm trying to find where it's kind of like this is like a pet peeve of mine, but I want to know. I'm just trying to find someone out there who has the answer. We're either facing a societal change where people just don't trust anything they hear anymore.
Yeah. Or they trust too much.
Or the problem with that is, of course, the sample sets with anecdotal evidence are so tiny, right? You just know the things that you've seen in your life, and while anecdotal sample sets are good sometimes, like I was describing with my case, they're good as a kind of a last resort check. Someone's just lying about everything, you're going to catch them because you're going to know some things are true, and you think that's not true.
Yeah.
But how do we get away from relying on anecdotal sources, even if they're fact checkers? Like, how do we get away from how do we introduce citations and permanence and citations back into the system? That's what I want to know. In books it's easy. It's in the back.
Yeah.
It's printed. That thing is dusty and old. You can physically verify that book is old.
Yeah.
It's been here for 50 years. That's what it said 50 years ago. It's probably still true. They had 50 years to shut this down. I don't think it's getting shut down. But like
online.
Yeah, how do you do it? Well, how do you do it anywhere now? Because our media is essentially online. Everything's streaming now.
Yeah, and everything can be edited at any time, any moment. So.
And it seems like less and less people look at broadcast news and use that as an information source. So you can't trust that. Like, that would work if they were doing something good, because then lots of people see it. So you have a kind of a mass of people. So it's not as good as a permanent citation, but it's the next best thing. And I think for a while that was happening, like in the zeros and the early tens. Like, people were flocking to media and saying, hey, could you guys create a semi-permanent solution for our lack of citations? But now people don't trust them either. So what do we trust? For new knowledge.
It's so hard, but I guess the main source, like, to talk about like an example, I guess, like a scientist, like the quantum.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was thinking that too.
You think straight to the source and what they said personally. You don't take at face value like what the news sources are saying, even though they could be talking the truth. You don't know until it's completely checked out.
So you look at the actual, the point of origin of the information, not just the source, but the source.
Yeah, because it could be a case of telephone.
Well, that's good. That matches what I was saying about the military, right? And how when the source is the military, you got to hesitate because there's no way to check the veracity, because they'll just cite national security if you try to poke in too deep.
Look at all the times.
You only get what they give you.
Yeah, look at all the times they said there's aliens, and then they're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. No, there's aliens. No, never mind. No, wait, there's aliens. No,
literally almost every month.
Yeah, well, it's like every day now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Aliens, no aliens. Aliens, no aliens. They're like this, they're like that. They're here, they're there. They're not anywhere.
Yeah.
What?
And then they're like, oh, we don't mean actual aliens. We mean like unidentified objects in the air.
Which is worse.
Could be anything.
Right, all right, so that's interesting. So let's say that we have to figure out whether it's not UFOs, but they call them UFPs? Yeah, UFPs.
UFPs.
Unidentified aerial phenomenon. UAPs, sorry. UAPs. So, now that they're calling them UAPs are actually worse than UFOs. Because UFOs, like, people associate UFO with aliens, right? Like extraterrestrial technology flying around in the sky. Like, where the heck did that come from?
Yeah.
Right?
War of the Worlds
kind of stuff, right? So, UAPs are worse because that means that, like, you know, at least from an American military standpoint, because the Air Force has said before that it wants full spectrum dominance, and they're not just talking about the radio spectrum.
No.
They're talking about planes in the air. So if somebody else is flying around in our airspace, and not only can we not stop them, but we don't even know who the fuck they are, we've completely failed on that front.
Yeah.
So why are they telling us that like it's better? Are they just admitting defeat? I mean,
It's so ridiculous.
right. So yeah. I mean, this is why that drone story with the Air Force was interesting, because it was a specific person who gave all the details. So you could say, okay, well, this person's the source, and this is named Gorich, the guy who just testified in front of Congress about I think that's his name, about the UFOs. And he was working on a special project, and they had all these alien technologies that came in. He was giving all these details about what he did. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying what he's saying is true, but at least he's the original source.
Yeah.
At least to some degree.
So if it comes out wrong, everyone's going to point the fingers at him.
Right. Yeah. Would you like more coffee, by the way?
I'm good for now.
I'm gonna grab more coffee. Yeah. So I mean, what does a credible source look like? Like who do you trust when you're trying to figure out what's true and what's not?
People who have all the data, where they can, like, they'll say what's going on, and then they'll have proof, and not just like a little like how do I explain it?
Well,
it's like when you're getting drama from your best friend, right?
Okay.
And you're like, well, like, you're my bestie, whatever, but like, how do I know that what you're saying is true? And then they start sending you screenshots. I want the screenshots, you know, because that'll show proof. I want the photos.
Showing them what you saw at the time.
Mm-hmm. If you can get a source and they're actually credible, they'll give you the proof.
Okay.
They're not just going to, like, give you words and then you just have to believe their words. You need to have the proof.
Yeah, I wish I had better answers here.
It's kind of like the quantum. Going back to that.
Right.
They have videos.
Right.
They actually have videos of them, like, playing with it.
Right. Right. They could be fabricated.
They could be fabricated.
Okay. So here's the thing. Here's how I figure here's how I know that's true. Like, at least I'm like 98% confident, and like yesterday when I read about it, when I heard about it, I was like already immediately like 85% confident, and now I'm like 95. Because when I look at those materials and I look at the process to recreate it, I know it's literally 5 days away. Mm-hmm. Anyone is 5 days away from who has the right equipment in shop, and they probably will if they're a big enough lab to verify that this is true. So there's a very low lag time now that the buzz is out.
Not just that, it's the fact that they're, like, telling all other scientists, like, you can do this too. Right. Here's the ingredients. Try it yourself.
Well, that's how science is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the perception is. I think that the perception is that that's not how science is.
But it is.
That's how it's
supposed to be.
Right. It's the reason that we don't do that with everything is because because it requires experimenting on humans, which is deeply unethical.
Yeah.
Or B,
we're selfish.
No. It's super expensive.
Oh, that too.
Yeah. So like it's something where like it takes years. And it takes, you know, millions and millions of dollars of equipment, and you need to have like 8 different PhDs observing and calculating and trying to figure out what the next step is, and maintaining and running the experiment, you know. So like those things, or even crazier, like something that's looking at the Earth as a whole system. You don't have a whole nother Earth to experiment on.
Yeah.
There's no control.
Nope.
Right. So you can't repeat the experiment. So in that case, what you do is you go to predictions.
Yep.
So like if you can't rerun the experiment, you go to predictions. But okay, so I like your answer about going to the original source. How does that apply to, like, let's say a kid walks into a library, and they say, I learned about this thing online. I want to learn more about it. You know, I want to hone in on it, but I need to know. Would you tell them to just? Yeah, but I want to do it through books. Like, how are they gonna do it? Like, use this technique with books. I mean, of course, you can just use the citations in the back and assume that someone's done the work on them because so much time has passed. And because it's this kind of like this institution. A book becomes an institution if it's sitting long enough. But like, but let's say that isn't good enough. Maybe that's what, maybe following the line of books back to the originator is something that schools need to be teaching, because that's kind of the hard copy version of what you need to do in the internet age. You know, basically doing, I hate to say it, it's almost like PhD level research, where you need to get you need to follow the entire citation chain to the end.
It's kind of like how, and this is so vague, but in high school I took an astronomy class, and we studied all the way back to like Galileo and like his talk about like planets and like the rotation and everything.
Nice.
So we didn't just like go to one source and one source only. We went all the way back, and then we looked at all of the information that we've gathered over the years. Right.
Well, sometimes one of the problems with that is language.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like if it's in a foreign language, or a dead language, or nearly dead language.
And then it's over translated.
Right. And then of course then you get translation issues. This is something that came up. We were talking ahead of the show. We were talking about you know, the chain of custody problems with religious texts.
Yeah, the Bible is so over translated all the time.
Well, also one of the problems with specifically with Hebrew, which is the Old Testament, you know, almost all the sources, not all, a lot of the sources for Hebrew that were used to create what people think of as the Old Testament now, Hebrew has multiple meanings per word, and sometimes they're contextual.
Yep.
Hebrew has a ton of contextual words. So you take a word and you put it in a different sentence, it means something completely different. It's almost like, it's like something that like the human brain isn't necessarily good at, and you would want to use with a computer, but that's pretty strange, but that's another conversation. But like, you know, it's totally open to being mistranslated. Like if someone has a limited, like having a limited set of knowledge about that language will actually almost definitely cause you to mistranslate. So, you know, going back to the original citation. So I guess at that point, you have to augment with experimentation too.
Yep. It all goes back to experimentation.
Right. So
So that's where it's like a little...
So what is social media doing to people? I mean, other than making us extremely paranoid and have this conversation.
It's turning us into zombies. In my opinion, it's turning us into zombies.
How?
Well, for one, you get TikTok reels everywhere. I mean, you get them even on YouTube, and they're very short, and it's really...
Yeah, YouTube's starting to take off with that.
It's shortening our attention span. Now we can't even pay attention to longer videos. I mean, I will admit there are times where I'm sitting down for a 30-minute video, and I'm like already getting bored of it 5 minutes in.
Right.
Because it's too long. And
Well, you know, I that happens to me too, and it depends on the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can watch a 2-hour video sometimes, and I'll be absolutely hammerlocked. I'm just like, I have to watch this.
Yeah.
And sometimes you watch a video in 5 minutes, and you're like, this is a waste of my time.
Yeah.
So some of that is curation.
Yeah.
Yeah, personal
100%.
curation.
But then there's also the part of it where it's like going back to the credentials and everything. People are just taking everything at face value on TikTok. They'll like see someone doing this like life hack or something, and then they're like, oh, this is so cool, it's such a good idea, and then they go do it, and then they're putting their life at risk.
Right.
And it's like they don't
Can
think
you give
about...
me an example?
Oh boy. I don't know, to be honest. I haven't been on TikTok in months because it's toxic. It's so toxic.
So it's interesting. I've actually recently had the experience of going on to YouTube and watching the shorts for a couple hours. So I was particularly tired. Like I've never done this in my life. So I never had that experience. I was like, you know, like kind of looking down on people who did it. You know, like, what silly people, you know, attention span. And then it got me. One day it just got me. They just had the right combination of videos. And of course, this is machine learning.
Yeah.
Like people don't know the reason that this is happening is because they're genetically selecting an algorithm which is good at hooking a person with the attributes from the data that they're collected from how you look at videos. So the more you look at videos, the more likely they are to be able to hook you. It's like almost like a addictive loop.
And that's why you say to yourself, I'm only going to be on here for like 5 minutes, and then 6 hours pass and you're still doing.
6 hours later.
You're still scrolling.
Yeah.
You're still scrolling aimlessly.
So they do that on purpose, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they make them addictive.
Got to bring people in somehow.
Should we be? It's interesting because I'm no fan of theocracy, but there's a bit of a theocracy in Utah with the Mormons. I'm not picking on them, but I'm not a fan either. But they do have something right, which is that a lot of the algorithms out there are addictive.
Yeah.
There's several active Utah-based advertising campaigns trying to get people to stop using electronic devices as much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, whether it's online gambling or it's porn or it's I mean, the truth is, they're targeting the things that offend their moral decisions, their moral stature, their faith. But it's not really that. I mean, they're missing. It's interesting to watch them campaign against it, but they're also missing the mark in that it's not. Those things might be a problem to some degree. I mean, gambling is definitely addictive.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
But they're missing the point that the algorithms are intentionally being made to be addictive, and there's no pushback.
Mm-mm.
There's no law that says, okay, this is measured, the addictiveness of this algorithm is measured as such, and it's having this impact, and it can't go past this point, and you went past this point, and now we're going to fine you and you have to fix it.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that.
No.
So they can make them as addictive as they want.
Yep.
So the question is the human personality vulnerable to the question one? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear what you think. Is the human personality vulnerable to that, to a weaponized addiction? And two, what's the effect on society if that's deployed on a mass scale, and everybody's walking around looking at their cell phones like this?
I mean, they practically are already.
They are.
Yeah. I mean, everywhere I go, I see people on their phones all the time. I'm someone who's a victim of it as well. Like, I'm on my phone constantly.
Right.
It's only up until recently where I deleted TikTok where I haven't been on my phone as much, and I'm very open and in the moment. I think ever since social media has been created, maybe not as much in the past, like before Vine and TikTok. Sorry to call out Vine, because Vine literally like was my entire thing as a child. I feel like that was everyone's thing in my generation. All the memes and videos and stuff. But yeah, but
good meme.
Exactly. But it definitely created this thing where we need to be on it all the time to watch the next video, to watch the next meme. And now you look everywhere, everyone's on their phones to see what the next consumable media is. They're not living in the moment. They're not paying attention to what's going on around them. They're not spending time with their families, their friends, doing the things that matter.
Okay. So I think, all right, so one of the things I think is happening there is, and so I'm Gen X. So, and this is something that Gen X definitely had in common. The boomers had it too, but it wasn't, the media wasn't as diverse when they were young. So I think, and the millennials, the older millennials had some of it, but then the internet was pretty popular by the time the younger millennials came along. So, yeah, so it was different for them. But the Xers specifically are obsessed with pop culture. I mean, more than anyone. And and there's an advantage to it, which is I can just quote a movie, you know, and people know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that we have a monopoly on this.
No.
If anything, I think we've created, it's become like this, the nostalgia culture, and it doesn't necessarily need to be 80s or 70s or 90s or anything, but just the nostalgia culture in general has become a facet of cultural life. But there's a reason for it, because those are the memes of the time.
Yep.
You know, like everyone will immediately know what I'm talking about. Nick says, good point, Marie. Yeah, cool, excellent.
Oh, it's my friend Nick. Hey, Nick.
Cool. Hey, Nick, thanks for tuning in. Ray, if anyone asks if you're a god, you say yes. You know, that's Ghostbusters. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that, right? And I made the joke about, you know, Back to the Future 2 and Mr. Fusion. Everybody knows what Mr. Fusion is. it saves time and energy, and it creates an ability for people to bond with each other. And I think for the younger generation, those memes are that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you can quote any meme and they'll know it.
Like I just last night I was just talking with somebody and I pulled out, fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
The more you fuck around, the more you find out.
Yeah.
And so the problem was it was an Xer and they didn't know the meme. So they once I sent them the meme, they were, oh, it's a meme, and they understood what I was saying to them. But that took time, and it even created a small misunderstanding. And people are reaching out to connect with society when they do stuff like that. When they're on Vine or they're on TikTok or they're on YouTube Shorts, and they're obsessively watching short little videos, or even like on a message board that's meme heavy.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, are you really trying to connect with society if you're just sitting there watching the same videos and just leaving a little silly comment going, haha, that was so funny?
Right.
Where you could be
in the right context, you'll be able to bring it up. Like fuck around and find out it's something you could use for anything.
Yeah. And people will understand it.
There's dozens of those memes that like you can use for anything. Like there's a lot of applications for it.
But does that always mean that someone is going to comment back and make a connection with you? And actually interact?
Well, okay, that's an interesting thing right there. So you're looking at the societal connection on the internet itself. I'm actually talking about in meat space. Right? I mean, it's not, I like that particular meme because it's really easy to describe.
Yeah.
But some memes are not easy to describe.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah. I mean, some memes are so easy to describe that you can, that's fun. We're being invaded.
Oh no. They were right.
Like Dogecoin.
Yeah.
Was from the Doge meme, and it's so easy to understand. You can literally make a coin out of it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that might be the easiest one. Right? So, Doge, like... right? It's just, but not everyone is, and they morph as they're applied to different problems.
Because algorithms.
Well, because people, are like, oh, this applies to this political situation.
Yeah.
Oh, this applies to that political situation. Oh, this is now these people getting scammed when they go out to buy a car. It applies to this thing. But so I think that maybe there's an earnest energy trying to connect with people, to find connection points with people, and expanding their knowledge about memes to get there. But at the same time, the tech companies are going, okay, well, they don't want to stop this. Let's not let them.
Yeah, let's use this to our advantage and really hook them.
Spend $500,000 working on the machine learning algorithm, the AI algorithm for YouTube or TikTok or whatever to get you hooked so you can't escape. So now you went in there in earnest trying to connect with society, and now you're trapped.
And now you got people doing the NPC live streams on TikTok, where they're literally repeating the same thing whenever someone gifts them a certain amount of money, and you have to do it with an emoji. And it's like a specific reaction that they're supposed to have to set emoji. And they're making money off of this, but they're just doing the most ridiculous things on these streams.
Someone literally made $26,000 for doing an 8-hour stream of just acting like a computer character.
$26,000
to act like a computer character, like an NPC.
No, they just act like an NPC.
On stream.
Like, thank you for that.
I love it how we can't say NPC because there was that kind of quasi-ban for a little while. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I'll just say it anyway. Go ahead, ban me, whatever. That's why I'm on Odyssey.
It's honestly...
If one of my videos is ever... If I'm missing a week on YouTube, make sure to check Odyssey in case YouTube has censored me, because that means I said something really interesting, and you probably don't want to miss it. Anyway.
YouTube doesn't like interesting stuff for some reason.
Yeah, they get mad.
Yeah.
You have to break the 10-minute
rule. But apparently... Hi,
Marissa. Thanks for tuning in.
I love you, Marissa. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so, like, you know, I think the concept of TikTok and, like, social media, of getting everyone connected and having, like, a connection all over the world is a great idea. But then there comes, like, the morality of it, of like where people are on their phones constantly. They're basically turning into zombies where they have to be on their phone all the time trying to see what's being posted.
The thing that's interesting is that there's people mumbling about this, but there's no organized counter. Nobody's saying, okay, we need to create a law where it's illegal to make it more addictive than this.
That's why the government was going to do the TikTok ban, but whatever happened to that? I haven't heard about that in months.
You know why? Because they did it under false pretenses. The political movement was under the sense that China was subverting our democracy by promoting videos that were undermining the United States. But that's not really the problem. The problem is that they're making it super addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the government is...
And there's precedent. This is the crazy thing. There's legal precedent. The inventor of the television was super, super psyched about, the guy who figured out that you could, shoot a beam of electrons at the back side of a screen, to make a black and white TV, however many times a second. And that person was like, we can teach the world now.
Yeah, and
then what do we use it for?
Subliminal messaging.
Yeah, subliminal messaging, sitcoms, advertisements, and like, yeah, sure, you had... But there were pushbacks to that. You didn't just get away with it. There was public broadcasting.
Yep.
There was regulations about how many channels a particular company could own. There's no pushback on the algorithms at all, except for that misnamed TikTok ban, right? But TikTok's not the problem. They all are.
They all are.
Yeah.
You can't blame one thing when everything else is also to blame. I mean, before people were complaining about YouTube and things that were being posted on YouTube. And now there's like, YouTube is like doing everything to make sure it's like super PC and like safe for everyone, and that things aren't being like misled and stuff, and they're banning people left and right. Or like you got Twitter where like, it's a no man's land. You can post anything on there. I've seen some very traumatizing things on TikTok. I mean, not TikTok, on Twitter, that I'm just like, I wish I could wipe my brain from seeing those things. Yeah. But
turn around.
Or you have Instagram where it's kind of like a middle point between YouTube and Twitter, where like there's certain things that you can post on there that you can't post on YouTube. But you can definitely post them on Twitter.
Well, they're all their own little walled gardens. So this is one of the things that I want to get away from as a technologist, as a technocrat. And one of the things that's, I'm looking at it, there's a public coalition of people, and they're like, yeah, we need to get these companies to stop doing that and stop making things addictive. Nobody's denying that they're intentionally making things more addictive, and it's really weaponized at this. It's more powerful than drugs for some people.
Yeah.
Like, there's people who would be less likely to get stuck on heroin than they are stuck on their phone.
Yep.
And I mean, maybe the cost is lower, but it ain't zero. And really the benefits are minimal, except for that, that initial, the entrance, the thing that gets them to enter, like, oh, what's the latest memes? And then 4 hours later,
they're still scrolling.
Scrolling.
I think a time limit should be implemented on social medias. That's my take on it. I feel like
TikTok does have that now.
I know, but no one ever
age based. I mean, I can't imagine they do.
No one ever sets it. It's a thing that you have to set yourself.
See, I did it for myself and didn't realize how much I was actually on TikTok.
It for me, it got to the point
I didn't
where
know this was a thing.
You have to go into your settings on TikTok and put a time limit on yourself.
Does it have a recommended time limit?
Yeah.
Oh, 30 minutes.
But even without it in place, if you're scrolling for a certain amount of time, you'll get a video pop up that'll go, stop. You've been scrolling for a while. Maybe you should log out. Go touch some grass or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Just like connected.
Yeah, it's just like random people. It's random people that I guess are like they're branded from TikTok or something, and they'll just go, stop. You've been scrolling for like an hour. Don't you think you should like step away from your phone for a minute?
Yeah.
When I was on TikTok, I got those all the time, and I would just scroll past them. I'd be like, shut up. But like, it got to the point for me personally where I was like, this is a problem for me. I mean, I'm at work scrolling through TikTok when I should be doing something. I should be.
It's an endorphin hit.
Yeah, I'm like, I should be shelving books.
Bandit in Vegas.
I'm like, I should be shelving books. I should be doing something. Like, I could be reading online or reading a book in person. I work in a library.
All right, so I will tell you as a professional, because I work in IT, so you inadvertently encounter metrics, let's just say that. It's everybody.
Yep.
So if somebody you work with at the library is like, what a slacker, I can't believe she's looking at her phone in the library.
They do it too.
They do it too, but even more, everybody does it.
Everyone does
Literally
it.
Everybody
because
does
that's what's going on.
Some people do it a lot less, but everybody does it at least a little. It's crazy to me that, so I like the 30-minute rule. I'm gonna actually try that. I'll let you guys know what happens next week. I'm gonna go but I'm not gonna use the timer built into whatever app. I'm actually gonna set a timer for myself.
If you have
So I'm like literally gonna go click and set a timer before I even open the tab.
If you have an Android, I don't know if Apple products do this, but like I have a Samsung. If I go into my settings, I have a thing that's implemented in my phone, like it already comes with my phone, where I can put timers on all of my social media apps, and it'll like time me out on certain apps. Like if I'm scrolling for too long, my phone will instantly log me out of that app, and it'll say like, you've reached your time limit. And there's only certain apps that I can access completely without time limits, like my cell phone, like to actually make calls, text messages.
Really?
Or my camera.
You're pretty disciplined.
Oh, 100%. This is why I love Samsung. But like,
nice.
I think it's a good thing to have. I also have my phone. For anyone wondering, I have the Galaxy Z Flip 3.
You have a Z Flip 3?
Oh yeah, this is the best thing ever. I have this thing on my
I'm not
phone.
almost murdering it.
It's okay. It's
I got it.
luckily most Samsungs not waterproof but water resistant. So most liquids that drop on this baby, it's fine.
Okay.
It's
wow, that's so cool.
This thing,
I haven't seen one of those yet.
It's the coolest thing ever. Oh look, it's on social media now. It's the coolest thing ever. And this front one, I've got Scooby-Doo. If it'll do it.
Oh yeah, look at that's so cool.
I know, right? But
they managed to turn
a flip phone into a smartphone.
A smartphone into a flip phone, yeah. That's crazy.
So the best thing about this is that I have a mode on my phone where like basically if I want to go to bed, I have a sleep mode. I have a theater mode for when I'm in movie theaters. It'll completely like silence my phone. I have a driving mode, so it can only access my cell phone. So if I need to make an emergency call, it'll automatically dial 911.
Okay. So I assume you have a pretty decent Bluetooth in your car, and then so you don't need to ever touch it. Yeah, that's one of the things. If you have a cheap Bluetooth where it's just audio, you do need to play with it sometimes.
Yeah. I have a work setting, so like I can only do certain things when I'm at work. I have a relax setting, so like if I'm not trying to go on social media, it won't let me go on social media.
So you segmented the activities of your life, and then you set up rules for yourself in them.
Yeah.
Because I was going to make a suggestion. I said there's a really great YouTuber, CGP Grey, and he had put this video up about what to do when COVID hit. And he said it's kind of like we've all been ejected into space and we're all in our own little space stations. It's like, how do you stay productive when you're locked in a tin can for a long time? And one of the things he was suggesting is you make different areas. You make a work area, you make a sleep area, you make an eating area, and you make a relaxation area. And then you just do the thing you're supposed to do. Oh, and there was an exercise area. So I think the rest area was the relax is also the sleep area. But like, and then you have an exercise area. And when you're in that area, you have to do the activity that you're in that. And I'm like, yeah, actually that does kind of make a lot of sense. Yeah. So that would also help. That's another way to segment your life, right?
Talking about COVID, I feel like that's where it all started. Like, it started picking up before COVID, obviously, because TikTok and, like, social media was so prevalent before COVID. But I feel like once COVID hit and we all needed to stay inside, no one was really implementing, like, exercising or doing something important.
We don't know all the effects, but we know some of the effects now. And I mean, we were speculating a couple years ago on the show about what the effects of COVID were going to be, the social effects, and they're bad. It's really, there's kids that are just gone.
Yeah.
They never came back.
No.
and there's adults that never can. You know, the adults are kind of forced into it because they have to work.
Yeah.
But like, you know, there were kids, you know, they did school from home for 2 years.
Yeah, and now they go to school and they're like
I mean, there's
anxious.
still people emerging from COVID.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like they were able to work from home this whole time and they were just getting Amazon deliveries and now they're like, oh, I have to get out. You know, I have to go outside. So, yeah,
It's scary. It's scary to think about, but that's what we're living in at the moment.
I mean, the thing that's really scary about it, first of all, is global. So it happened to everyone, right? I mean, you know, different countries recovered at different rates because of their, you know, the different societal decisions. But, I mean, we've never had a global effect like this on Earth.
No.
I mean, you know, we had like the Ice Age, but it wasn't like people had structures like we have now with insulation and automation. You know, it was just people bouncing from cave to cave trying to stay alive in the human bottleneck. We don't have a genetic history with this.
Mm-mm.
So this is like Darwin's in full effect here.
Yep.
I feel like some people are just permanent dropouts from the human race.
And we're slowly seeing the effects of it.
Yeah.
I mean, people are way lazier now than they were before COVID.
Right.
You got people not really wanting to do like things that they were doing before COVID, like simple tasks at work or anything. I mean, even I am like a victim of sitting at work and like going on my phone and like watching videos for a certain amount of time and not actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
So I want to ask you about one last fun question.
Oh boy.
And if there's anything you want to talk about that I've not dove into, let me know. I know I skipped one of your topics, but this is kind of a cool one. You mentioned you're into aliens, so you'll appreciate this. So in alien life, there's something known as the Fermi paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And the Fermi paradox, if you don't know, is this idea that, okay, if there's aliens out there, you know, why haven't they contacted us? You know? So, and there's a lot of different answers as to why. And so I actually have a pair of questions to go with this.
I want to hear them. Because I have multiple answers to that question.
There's a lot of, there's like 20 accepted answers as to why we haven't been contacted. And of course, my favorite is the First Contact Protocol, like from Star Trek. Like, intelligent alien races have rules, and they're not going to mess with us. Because they would have already messed with us.
Yeah.
Why wait till we can blow them up?
Exactly. You
know, they would have already killed us if they were like, if they thought we were threatened, they just wanted to get us out of here. So they obviously have some kind of non-interference, or we'd be dead already. So, so the question is, we have two problems. You know, the real question is about the Fermi paradox and social stability. I'm talking about this thing with the superconductor and the possibility of maybe faster than light travel. Reminds me that as of right now, we might be able to approach the speed of light, like maybe say half speed or third speed. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be able to go to the speed of light because it's just the energy is too high to do that. So, you know, let's say we're on Alpha Centauri, we're sending messages back and forth. It's a few years before messages can get back and forth between here and Alpha Centauri. So we have this huge lag. Now, think about the society on Alpha Centauri, right, and the society on Earth, and think about how fast our tech churn is right now, like how fast our technologies are changing. I mean, this is like just the superconductor is going to make a huge difference.
It's going to be so great.
It's going to change our society immensely, right? And it's not going to just have technological effects. It's going to have social effects too.
Yeah.
Like the decisions we make are going to be completely different. Like I said, I think there's going to be a huge baby boom from this. But, you know, there's going to be, you know, people are going to look at resources differently, people are going to look at property differently, and people are going to look at technology itself differently. And that's going to have a social effect. So if that happened now, and there were people on Alpha Centauri right now, they're not going to find out for another 4 years.
No.
So having social stability in a universe where faster than light travel is not possible is a huge factor. And of course, the real question is this evidence that the singularity has happened in an alien society already? They had a singularity, not us. And now their AI, which, assuming it's mechanistic in nature, like ours are, is very, very strict social rules, and so it doesn't drift socially. Is that an advantage that a hostile AI has on in a galactic scale? You know what I'm saying? Right? So when they are communicating between planets, their goals aren't changing, and their social structure isn't changing. So when they're communicating between planets, and it takes 8 years to get between, or 10 years, or 30 years to get between planets, the AI, the message from this AI to that AI, and their goals haven't changed. They're on the same page. People, 4 years, just 4 years between planets, we're going to completely change in those 4 years. They're going to be like, we're going to be just spamming each other with messages, and by the time they're going to be like, we did what? You know, like they're just going to become completely separate society.
Yeah.
So is this, the tech speed churn and the social stability problems induced by it, is that all the evidence we need that the universe has been taken over by a hostile AI and a singularity, and that it's just a matter of time before they come for us?
Okay.
How hard is that?
There's a few ways I can go towards this. I feel like maybe that's a possibility, or maybe they've already been looking into us and they're just like, they're already ruining themselves. We can't do anything about it. Like, if we go down there, it's just not right, because they're already hurting themselves.
Right.
Or
I like that. I like that a lot. And a lot of people discount a social milestone as a first contact protocol.
Like, who are we to say that aliens aren't already, like, they don't already have morals themselves?
I mean,
like,
I think they would have to. I mean, you could say whatever you want about those AIs.
I mean,
their advantage would be that they have a consistent moral structure.
Exactly.
Good or bad, it's consistent.
Yeah. And, like, talking about human morals and applying it to alien morals, because we don't know.
Right.
If we see someone destroying themselves, we pity them. We're like, we can't hurt them. They're already hurting themselves. Like, that's messed up. If I were to go up to someone who's disabled and I were to make fun of them, no one would be cheering me on. Everyone would, like, point at me and call and, like, boo at me because I'm making fun of someone who's disabled. I feel like that would be the same in alien standards. If they looked at us and they were like, yeah, let's go raid them, no one's going to cheer them on. They're going to be like, you're gonna go raid the humans? They're already killing. Look at their planet. It's dying.
Hitting baby seals.
Yeah. It's like kicking a baby. You don't do that.
Okay.
You don't do that.
Okay, all right. We have some moral ambiguity floating about the room.
Or the aliens already looked into us and they're like, they're too stupid. We gotta just go our own way. Like.
Right.
Because compared to them. And if it's
that's interesting. So, all right. So this is a variant of the first contact protocol. So,
but kind of different.
You know, like, all right. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about with that, if you haven't watched Star Trek for some bizarre reason, the idea is that the alien races have all agreed on a first contact protocol. Once you get faster than light travel, they come and knock on your door and say, "Hey, we're aliens. Welcome to the universe." You know, and then you make your alliances and your enemies, and then poof, you're part of the Galactic Federation.
Yeah.
Or you're down with the Romulans and the Klingons or whatever. Anyway. So that's the idea. But
that's the idea.
The first contact protocol, the standard by which you make first contact doesn't have to be faster than light travel. That was just a wild guess on Gene Roddenberry's part. It's a good guess, but I think it's probably social.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like saying a no contact protocol, where you had like
they've been watching us.
They've been watching us, and you say we have no contact. So. Maybe there's something that we can do that once we've done it, they'll never talk to us. Like, we're never going to communicate with them. They're just terrible. You know, they clean their ears with Q-tips. It's the grossest thing we've ever seen. We're never going to that planet. Savages. You know.
Have you seen the way they procreate? It's disgusting.
Yeah. They eat food.
With their mouths.
And then it comes out their other end.
Disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, who knows, right? It could be that simple. So
Yeah.
they could have a no contact protocol based on that. Or they could have a first contact protocol where they think we've evolved the thing that we need the most to be good neighbors in a galactic.
Or it's
universe.
like an original War of the Worlds situation where we're holding white flags and they just beam us and we all die.
Right. Where they don't care. They just run us over.
They're just like, oh, look at these little ants.
Where you just hold up a white flag and they're like, oh, look, an easy target.
Yeah. And next thing you know, none of our clocks are working and all of our lights go out.
A more serious take on that is the day the Earth stood still.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Or like Independence Day, even though I don't like quoting
That's
Independence
a less serious
Day.
take, but yeah. other than the simplicity of the virus hacking, that data, what the heck's his name, Spinner did. That was a little goofy, but the rest of it was pretty realistic. As goofy as it was.
It was okay.
Yeah, I mean, I particularly just like in the War of the Worlds, they didn't anticipate that the disease would be what killed them. I could see an alien race not expecting us to be crazy enough to actually kamikaze their ship, and it isn't really prepared for that. Mm-hmm. I could see that. Yeah, that would make sense.
Or
like they might have a shield for nuclear weapons, but you just fly one F-16 into it, the whole damn thing crashes.
Or, and I hate to think about it because honestly, this movie kind of gave me the creeps. It's going to be a situation like, oh my God, what is the movie called? The one where there's like these seeds, and inside the pods, they're like a copy of a human.
Oh, pod people?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Invasion? Is that invasion?
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and then they all scream at you if they can tell that you're a human.
Right.
That scares me. Because what if they're already here? And then that's why we have all these politicians not acting like themselves and stuff.
Well, this is something that they talk about on the Earth Today, at least in the remake of the Day the Earth Stood Still. This is what happened to the Native Americans. We like to think that we killed them with violence, guns and incursions. It wasn't even that nice. It was smallpox. We murdered them with smallpox.
Yeah.
They lost 90% of their population because they didn't have the exposure to cities that Europeans had. So once we came over here, we just came with our better immune system and say, we'll just stand near you. And that's all it took.
Yep.
So, I mean, an alien race that's been on a similar planet that's been around for a few 100,000 years, and I'm sure they're way more advanced in genetics.
They come down
here. Literally just come down here and stand near us.
They're like, hey guys, and we're just like,
hey, high five, and you're dying as you're high fiving.
Yeah.
That's the delivery method.
Yeah, and then COVID comes around.
Coincidence?
I think not.
All these UFO reports?
I think not.
Yeah, all right, so totally serious. We're just being silly now, but it does look like they just admitted COVID did indeed come from the Wuhan lab. We just got funding to it. And the crazy thing is, well, they kicked people off of Facebook for saying this.
Yeah.
And now the Department of Defense and the White House has said it's true. Mm-hmm. What?
So it goes back to why would you do that?
There's a lot social media.
Why would you do that?
Right. Well, because it was so incredulous that it wasn't even plausible.
I know. And then
it turns out to be true.
And they're like, oh, sorry, guys.
That's why nobody trusts anyone.
Yep. And it goes all back to the credentials.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. Did you have a good time?
I did have a good time.
Awesome. Hey, and everybody, if you enjoyed this, please throw us a subscribe and a like